Good evening. Welcome to the Town of Dudley Planning Board for Wednesday, July 12th, 2023. Present this evening, we have Daniel Evanston, Vice Chairman. He's on the telephone with us. Thomas Chinaki's not here yet. Richard Clark, member, he's present. And David Durgan, member, is present. William Scanlon, our town planner, is here. First item on our agenda for this evening, Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. I believe I just heard the first item on our new business agenda is approval of minutes from May 24th and June 28th, and I believe I just heard the minutes were not complete yet. Is that correct, Bill?
Excuse me?
The minutes are not complete yet.
Correct.
Okay, so we'll have to take that up at our next meeting. Number 2, under new business, A&R plans. Cape Bob Realty Corp., Robert Kuchar, sorry. Old Southbridge Road, plan prepared by Land Planning, Inc. So can we have somebody here for that? Sure. If you guys didn't already sign in, could you sign in before the meeting, just so we have your names? Thank you. Okay.
Hi.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Brian Hill. I'm a representative with Land Planning, Inc. I'm a professional land surveyor, and I did most of the work on this plan here. And with me is Robert Kuchar. He's the owner. Kebab Realty, he's the representative for Kebab Realty. And he also lives in the land and owns the land. It's an unusual piece of land. It's a big parcel of land, and it has a common driveway currently with the neighbor, which accesses also the 3 houses that are currently on the lot. 2 houses on the lot and like an accessory
Building.
Yeah. The idea is here to use the A&R to do a mixture of traditional lots and interior lots. Lot 1, 3, and 4 are interior lots, and lot 2 is a traditional lot. The common driveway bylaw allows 2 lots on a common driveway, so we tried to keep 2 lots on a common driveway. So the existing common driveway will be shared by the neighbor and lot number 1. A new common driveway is proposed for lots 3 and 4, and lot 2 was serviced by its own driveway. We flagged the wetlands on the lot, located the wetlands. There's a small man-made pond on lot 4. According to my wetland scientist, does not qualify as a wetland, but it's very small and wouldn't affect even if it was. There's a small river in the northeasterly corner by the road intersection, and we flagged a riverbank, top of riverbank, and shown the 200-foot riverfront zone. Now for lot 2, the 200-foot riverfront zone affects lot 2 quite a bit, so we've shown the buildable areas reduced by the riverfront zone. The zoning bylaw says wetlands as defined, which I believe includes the riverfront zone. So we excluded that from the building area table. We've provided profiles and cross-sections for the proposed common driveway to 3 and 4. We've provided profile and cross-section for driveway to access lot number 2. And like I said, lot number 1, we have a profile for where it connects to the existing common driveway. There's no proposed development within the riverfront zone, or just barely into the riverfront zone on lot 2, which we'd be working under 10% of the riverfront zone, those alterations. Like I said, we tried to work fully within the zoning bylaws of the town and not looking for any waivers.
I'm sorry, but I don't see anything denoted on the plan for the river.
You looking at sheet 1 or sheet 2?
Right at 12 o'clock.
Yeah, the flags, I didn't show the flags like I would on a conservation filing plan, but that line is the top of riverbank, where it says river on sheet 1, and there's a heavy line around it.
Okay.
It's right near the intersection of the 2 roads.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Mr. Edmiston, do you have this document in sight? Is it something that was available to you where you are?
Somebody on Zoom.
Hello?
Dan?
Dan? Did we lose him? Hello?
We pay the phone bill?
Dan?
Dan?
Guess he's not there at the moment.
Okay, to be continued.
Okay.
All right, so that's where the river comes in play. It's right at the elbow of the Cordis Road and Old Southbridge Road.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the existing common driveway is in the riverfront zone, but we're not proposing anything new in that area.
It's gonna be just, that existing driveway is just gonna be for lot 2.
Lot 1 and the neighbor who currently uses the common driveway as well. McKinstry on Cordis Road, he also uses that common driveway.
Okay.
Brian, can you maybe go lot by lot so we
Sure.
can see
Sure.
that each lot would qualify?
Right, okay. So lot number 1 has a 50-foot access strip. That's an interior lot. And the access area is excluded from the minimum lot size calculations. And the 150-foot lot width is right at the end of the 50-foot strip. And there's an area for building in the residential zone, suitable size for a very large building, well, a septic, that can all fit in the residential portion of that lot.
Isn't your frontage going across the river?
The frontage is on Cordis Road, but like I said, the existing common driveway is to be utilized by lot 1, so the access is provided over that existing common driveway.
Right, but you're asking us to create an interior lot which doesn't have frontage because there's a river in front of it.
Well, not, we're talking access and frontage are 2 different things.
I'm not talking about access,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about, you gotta have 50-foot of frontage for an interior lot.
Right, yeah, so it has 50-foot of frontage on Old Southbridge Road. It has 50.16 feet of frontage on Old Southbridge Road.
And then- Right, but if the river's in front of it.
Hello?
Hi, Dan. You back?
Yeah, I could hear everything. I just muted myself because I had some background noise, and then for some reason I couldn't unmute. Sorry about that.
Okay.
To Richard's question, yes, I did have all the documents I had a chance to review.
Thank you.
Yep.
So lot 1 is 5.8 total acres. The build factor is 18.2. There's no wetlands on lot 1. There are wetlands on the access area of lot 1, but those are excluded from the minimum lot size calculations. So in terms of the interior lot, after the access area, there's no wetlands on that portion of the interior lot. And then, now Lot 2 has 307 feet of frontage on Old Southbridge
Hang on, we
Road.
gotta go back to lot one.
Yeah, sure, sorry.
Yeah, the whole thing with the river in front of your frontage is, to me, is like,
Not usable.
not usable, right? I mean, like, you can't go through the river to get to there.
That's the point of the common driveway, is to provide access, since the frontage isn't
Yeah, but
available for
I
access.
think when you're talking about an interior lot, you're saying that you're gonna access it through your access way, right?
When I read the bylaw, it said that through your frontage or through a common driveway. I believe it says that in the interior bylaw, interior lot bylaw.
We have the interior bylaw that we can take a look at, because I think the intent of the interior lot bylaw is that you access it through that 50-foot of frontage.
A common driveway.
Yeah, if you wanna have a common driveway going down that 50-foot of frontage, that's one thing, but it's not like you would access it from an abutter's lot.
So on Mason Road, I did a plan 2 years ago on Mason Road with the same situation. We had 3 lots with a common driveway, and the third lot, the common driveway went around the wetland to access the house in the back. There was no issue at that time with that, accessing the land with the common driveway.
I don't see anything in here about access off of the frontage for an interior lot. It says interior lots shall have at least 50 feet of road frontage on an accepted town road or state highway.
What page you on, Bob?
28, section 3.09. No part of any lot between the front line of the principal building and street line shall be less than 50 feet in width and shall not be used for minimum lot size calculations. This part of the lot shall be referred to as the access area. So that's what he's done, is he's shown 50-foot strip.
Right, but we're calling it the access area. You don't have access if there's a river running through it.
I believe there's a little more where it says that or accessed by, is there a little more where it says or accessed by a common driveway?
I mean, I think the intention of the interior lot was that you would gain access to your interior lot through your access way.
Do you want to see this, Brian?
Yeah, it might be another section, I'm sure I can find it. But we can keep going.
Bill, question for you?
Sure.
Is there a limit to the number of lots to be created in an acre?
No.
No. Do the common driveways meet all the standards, guidelines, codes?
I think the common driveway for lot 2, the one that says for lot 2 is gonna be beyond beyond the common
So,
driveway bylaw.
You may recall we had proposed common driveway standards,
Right.
and they were not approved, so
But isn't there a length already in there? 400 feet, I thought there was a length of 400 feet or something like that already in there.
for a common driveway?
Yeah. I know we were trying to tighten it up and give it specificity, but
That didn't work.
common driveway's gonna be in the zoning.
Oh, that's something to do with that point, didn't it? Okay,
So you should be in the zoning if you had the interior lots.
One section of the driveway bylaw says that driveways shall not normally be approved at intersections. Which, so if there was a driveway at at the frontage, it would be a bad location for the access to the lot.
What about the zoning bylaws?
That's what I'm looking
That's what
to.
you're referencing.
Is there anything in the driveway zoning bylaw that says that it's to a specific length for common driveways? I thought there was.
I'm not seeing anything. Well, I guess I don't know the answer to the question of whether this access, this frontage would qualify under the terms of the bylaw. So we might need to refer it to town council for an opinion.
So my other, go ahead, Dan.
Is there anything here that would trigger a stormwater report?
There's a minimum 1 acre of land disturbance. I think each lot would be under that threshold.
Okay, thank you.
So to the surveyor, question, would lot 3,
Yep.
there's no reason that lot 3 couldn't have a driveway over that 50-foot wide access that's going.
It's a bit steep. It's a bit steep, so the common driveway from 3-4 does make sense for it. But it could. You could do some cutting. It could.
But what I'm saying is, there's no rivers or anything
No,
running
no,
through that
nothing,
area
no.
of land that would,
No.
that would impede their access through there.
Not at all.
They're just choosing to use the current driveway that's.
Well, currently it's a common driveway that services the neighbor and Robert's lot. So currently it's a 2-lot common driveway, and so we just wanted to keep it a 2-lot common driveway. So that's why we kept it with the lot 1.
No, I'm talking about 3 and 4.
Yeah, and then 3 and 4 would be a 2-lot common driveway,
Okay.
and then lot 2 is on its own. Just to work within the zoning bylaws.
For the McKinstry lot, does the river extend along the length of that frontage?
So if you have, so what I'm looking.
Show it on-
No, it goes right into a culvert about right where the line ends there.
Okay.
And under the street to the other side of Cordis Road.
And there's a dwelling on that lot currently?
There is a dwelling on McKinstry's, yeah.
Okay, and that's accessed
That's
by-
their only access, is that common driveway right now. They could probably build another one, but they've been doing that since, this is a weird situation. It's not a deeded common driveway. I'm calling it a prescriptive easement. They've been doing it since, I think, 1930, something like that. I went through every previous owner. I couldn't find deeded rights to it.
Okay.
So what we're showing is the approximate prescriptive easement area.
So, just a question for you then. So you have, on lot, I'm trying to figure out what this lot is. Lot 2 has 307 feet of frontage.
308, yeah, 307, yep.
307.02 it says?
Yep.
So why couldn't you shorten the frontage for lot 2 and make the frontage for lot 1 go 50 feet in front of the river?
Lot 2 wouldn't work with the build factor. I had to, what we really wanted with lot 2 was a 1-acre triangle-shaped lot in the front, and that doesn't work with the build factor. So it has to be a 2-acre lot for the build factor on lot 2. Oh, well, also, not to mention, lot 2 is mostly riverfront to the north. So that area is protected. So lot 2, if lot 2 is to be built, it's going to be built on the south end either by the front, by Old Southbridge Road, or it's gonna be built in the back.
But I think, Guy, you raise a good point that you could just get 50 feet of frontage on Old Southbridge Road for Lot 1.
On the other side of the river. That's what I was
Right,
thinking.
right.
So you don't have the river to,
Yeah, but then this lot 2 wouldn't work.
but you got plenty of land in the back for lot 2 that you could continue it.
Lot 2 is not an interior lot, correct?
No, that's a standard lot.
That's a standard lot, which requires 150 feet of frontage in that district. So I guess the question is, if it's the build factor, is there any way that you could reconfigure lots 1 and 2 so that lot 1 would have frontage and lot 2 would meet the build factor?
So the build factor for lot 2 is minimal, and for lot 1 is minimal. Yeah, it was tight. The existing buildings where they're located, the 150 feet of lot width at the end of the at the end of the access area, these things are kind of driving factors in the whole design.
But, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, don't we have two build factors, one for lots that are like under 2 acres
Yes.
and one that's over 2 acres?
Yes.
So what's the build factor for a lot over 2 acres?
So the build factor is 23 for normal lots. Build factor for lots containing 2 acres and having frontage of 150 feet shall be 24.5 or less.
Okay, so it actually gets worse. Or no, it should get better.
Yeah, it's-
Lot 3 and lot 2 were the ones that were right at the threshold.
Right, so what we're saying here is if your lot 2 is 1.97 acres, it's under 2 acres. If you add a little piece of land to lot 2 in the corner in front of the river. Oh, yeah, I see, you're gonna be taking land away from lot 2. Well, if you can get lot 2, if you can give the frontage for lot 1 on the other side of the river, you get your 50-foot of frontage. Even if you don't wanna use it, it's there. And if your lot 2 it's gonna get a little bit smaller, it's gonna go down, right now it's at 1.97, try to get lot 2 over 2 acres, then your build factors are different. For lots over 2 acres, the build factor is different than for lots under 2 acres. You're stuck with the build factor you got right now because you got 1.97 acres. You see what I'm saying?
It's a very tricky property to
Yeah, you gotta
design.
balance it out, so you might have to make this backside, right now you've got the back of the lot lining up with the industrial 130 and the res 43 line. You might have to go a little bit into the 130 line. You might have to go over the line a little bit to make it work, but get yourself more than 2 acres of land there, and I think you solved the problem.
I think unfortunately, the build factor on both lot 1 and 3, there's not a lot of flexibility there. So if I take land from lot 1 or lot 3, it's gonna dip into that build factor.
But the build factor on 1 is 18.2, and you can go up to 20,
Yeah.
what'd you say, Bill?
Well, it's 2 and 3 that I had near the minimum, lot 2 and lot 3.
Wouldn't be touching 3,
Yeah, you just be touching 1.
touching 1 and 2.
Yeah, I believe I saw somewhere in here that said the driveway comes over your frontage or over a common driveway. I'm having trouble finding it in the bylaw.
I mean, to me, it's just common sense. If you're making an interior lot, you're gonna use that entrance way, the access way to get to the interior lot as your frontage. I mean, that was the intent when we wrote the bylaw. I was on the board when we put it in.
Well, but a common driveway, by definition, comes over, it's gonna start at one lot and then go to several lots. So some of the lots are not gonna use their frontage for access, they're gonna use the common driveway,
But
by definition.
in my 20 years on the planning board, I've never seen an interior lot that had a common driveway with another one.
Well, it doesn't, no, it has a common driveway with the neighbor. Oh, you're talking about lot 3 and 4 sharing a common driveway?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm talking about 1 and 2, I'm sorry.
So one would share the common driveway with the neighbor, which is a traditional lot.
Okay. But it's coming in over lot 2.
Right, because a common driveway, like I said, a common driveway to 2 lots, it's gonna start on one of the 2 lots. And then it's gonna access to the other one.
I think the question is it frontage? Does the portion along the river count as frontage because you can't access that, over the river?
Well, I mean, it is 50 feet on an approved town road.
Right, but a river running in front of it, I mean, like, unless you're gonna build a bridge over it.
Maybe we should look at the definition of frontage.
Got the zoning bylaws here. Yeah, you can find it faster than I can.
Admittedly, this was a tough design, and this is probably our 4th or our 5th layout to get something that meets all of the zoning bylaws. So, we're trying to work with all the zoning bylaws. We're certainly not trying to trick anyone.
But, I think I saw an email that said that the wetland delineations are not on here, but you did them?
Yeah, so the river is flagged at the top of the riverbank. There are no other adjacent wetlands with it, and that's the only wetland on the property. There is a man-made pond on lot 4 at 2,000 square feet, but my wetland scientist says it doesn't qualify as a wetland. Under the, it's the isolated area under 5,000. We didn't have a contract to do it, but my wetland scientist is on the field crew, so I just said, go ahead and do it. It's just that river area.
And there was no other waivers on this
No.
application?
And apparently that waiver that I had noted on the checklist, in fact, is not necessary to have a waiver for that item. So I guess the question before the board is whether the access for lot 1, excuse me, not the access, the frontage for lot 1 is legitimate along Cordis Road and Old Southbridge Road, or if it's not legitimate because of the presence of the river. It does sort of technically meet the requirements of frontage because that's where the lot goes. It goes down to those roads.
Right, but I just think to quote, create an interior lot, you would access that interior lot through the access way, that 50-foot way that gets you to the lot.
Well, I'm not sure there's a distinction between a regular lot and an interior lot in that regard. Why couldn't you access an interior lot via common driveway?
On a common driveway.
But it's coming in off of it's coming off of a different lot.
Right.
Yeah, but you're using a common driveway to get to that. Kind of.
So do the other members think that you shouldn't get access off of common driveway for an interior lot?
I'm not so much worried about the common driveway. I'm worried about if you're gonna create an interior lot and you're gonna have this 50-foot access all the way out to a road, that's supposed to be your access to get to that 50-foot lot.
Not on a common driveway. I thought if you have wetland, you can use common driveway and use frontage on a wetland and use common driveway to access your property.
I'm
You can take the frontage off a wetland and use common driveway to access it.
This is, I mean, wetland's one thing, this is not
Yeah, it's a
wetland, this is a river. I mean, it's like, it's not gonna go away. I'm also looking at your driveway profiles for the different lots. Bill, on the driveways, what's our graded percentage? Is it 6% for the first 50 feet?
Driveways shall not exceed a 6% grade ascending from the curb cut through the first 50 feet.
Oh, yeah,
And-
I thought you might bring this up. So, for lot one, it does have the 6% at Old Southbridge Road. The profile we're showing is where lot one connects to the existing common driveway. So not shown is the first 200 feet of the existing common driveway, but it does meet that 6% 50 feet bylaw.
Is that the 1.61%?
Yeah, for 50 feet, looks like.
Well, if you can see the driveway profile for lot one, and where it says existing driveway connecting in to the left of the profile. So I picked up the profile from where lot one connects to the existing driveway. Not from Old Southbridge Road.
Oh, okay.
But there is a leveling area on the current common driveway by Old Southbridge Road. Yeah, one of the things we're really trying to do here too is to completely protect the riverfront zone and not propose any work in it at all. The access to lot two is right at the edge of it. The driveway profile, center line for lot two.
Yeah, but I'm looking at the driveway profile for lots 3, 4, and 2, and I see you got 6% at the beginning, but it doesn't look like it's going for 50 feet. It looks like it's going for 25 feet.
No, that is 50 feet. You can see the 1 + 0, 0 is 100 feet.
What are those numbers below, the 419.4 and the 426.11?
Well, you see 0 + 0, 0, that's the start, and 1 + 0, 0, that's 100 feet in. So the first line there is the 50-foot line. The one doesn't have a label on it. And that's exactly where the 6% ends.
All right, so going back to lot 1,
So like I said, on lot one, I picked up the common there's an existing common driveway to 2 lots already. And we're connecting into that. So I don't show the leveling there because the leveling's already provided on Southbridge Road on the existing common driveway.
all right, we have a public hearing that we're late for.
Right.
Okay, so this is an extremely complicated plan from what I'm looking at here. And I think we need to have a look at it. We can keep these plans here with us?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
Let us have a better look at this.
Yeah, I believe I read something about or over a common driveway, or accessed over a common driveway. One of the things as a land surveyor I have to do is provide access to a lot. So the common driveways are a vital part of lot one, and specifically.
So, do you want to try to rework lot 1 and 2, or?
I mean, I'd like you to, this was a lot of work, and this was a lot of effort to fit this into the zoning bylaws.
Okay.
You know, like I said, we wanted to just do a 1 acre lot in the lot 2 area. But with the riverfront zone and the access and it turned into a 2 acre lot, so it kind of tightened things up on us.
Okay. If that's the case, then the board either has to decide, or I can try to get an opinion from town council. And we can talk about it at the next meeting.
What's pleasure?
If you think this is a legitimate plan, then you can
Council's opinion.
vote on it tonight. If you still have questions about it, as you suggested, you want to take more time, then we could do that as well.
I would like to have a little better look at it, and I mean, the problem's gonna be is if we ask for a legal opinion, the town administrator's
Well,
gonna say.
one thing that's interesting is the common driveway with McKinstry, the neighbor, that's an existing common driveway that services the 3 houses right now. So all we're doing is reusing that for 2 houses. So we're actually reducing the traffic over that down to two lots. So we got an existing 3-lot common driveway, basically. He's got 2 houses that predate zoning. I could have used the bylaw that allows you to change, if you can't meet zoning, but you have 2 grandfathered houses. I could have tried to do that, but we were trying to fit this with the interior and traditional lots.
No, I think, you've done a good job with a tricky piece of property. It's just a question of whether that frontage by the river is,
And you did kind of give us some, maybe a couple ideas there with increasing the size a lot too, and moving the frontage on one. It might work. It might work.
Yeah, I mean,
Bylaws say it doesn't have to be really usable frontage either, right? That doesn't lumber here?
well, the point of the common driveway is to provide a better access,
Yeah.
less
but
disruptive,
it's
either
usually
from a traffic
frontage.
or an environmental perspective. Certainly you wouldn't want to get access across the river.
Yeah, but you can still use that frontage on the river.
or you could create another 50 foot on the other side of it.
Right,
and You
that's-
don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Well, yeah, but then I would never put the driveway on lot 1, even if I did what you recommended. I would never put a new driveway to lot 1 because it would be into the riverfront area, and we would be modifying the riverfront area. So by using the existing common driveway, we don't touch the
Yeah, but
riverfront
can
area
you
at
just
all.
move your frontage off the river onto the other side and use common driveway?
Your existing common driveway that you say here is in the,
Right, but it's already
Riverfront.
built, it's already constructed, it's already grown in right to the edges of it, and it's been used for the last, 75 years. So it's not there's nothing new proposed until you're out of the riverfront zone.
right,
then
and
we
I'm
go
not
to
saying,
lot
I'm
one.
not saying you couldn't continue using it. I'm just saying that if you gave yourself that extra 50 foot on the other side of the river, you would in essence meet the turn, in my opinion, you would meet the frontage for the
Bill,
bylaw.
can I chime in?
Sure.
Okay, so I personally think that we need the town council to look at this. I'm kind of at odds with the whole entire idea of using the frontage across the river. I do not like the excuse that, hey, this existing common driveway has been in effect for 40 years and we're allowed to use it. If you keep the use for lots 2, 3, and 4, there's nothing we can do about it. The second you introduce access to another new lot, that's when it falls under our regulations. And if it doesn't meet the requirements of slope or anything else, then it has to. Keep it for 2, 3, and 4, no issues. The second you add lot number 1 to it, it has to meet new regulations.
Sure, well, can I just add
think we need to sit
one
up there.
comment?
I think we need to have town council weigh in. I don't think it's up to us to solve the issues of the lots. I think the board's been doing a great job of trying to give input, but at some point in time, we're not the engineer. We have to kind of take a step back and let them work.
One thing I just want to say to that, we're not adding lot 1 to the common driveway, we're taking lots 2, 3, and 4 away from the common driveway, and only lot 1 is on that common driveway.
That's still a change. That's still a change. Instead of, when you change with the use of a common driveway of a lot of an occupancy, then you have to meet the current standards. You're changing something.
Right, but a 2-lot common driveway, I believe, does not require a special permit, am I saying that right?
Yes. So I think we should get a consensus from the board and move on.
Yeah,
Doesn't look like we're gonna resolve this this evening.
Take it to town council and see what.
is everybody in agreement to?
Just give it to Graves, let Graves review it. It'd be cheaper than town council probably, right?
Anything could be cheaper than town council.
Yeah, we're asking for a legal opinion though, I think.
I think so.
If we wanted them to review the driveway profiles, that would be one thing, but I think
Yeah.
it's. Brian, did you want to try to rework the plan and come back with a different plan?
Well, I'd like to stay with what we have
Okay,
and see if we
okay.
can get this approved.
So then we need, if council comes back and says no, then you'd have to
Yeah,
something else.
Yeah, so I mean, in my opinion, the two-lot common driveway provides access to lot one, so I don't see an issue with it in terms of a surveyor giving access to a lot. I wouldn't dare do lot one without the common driveway because then it wouldn't have access, so.
So let's get the legal opinion and.
Okay, is that the consensus?
I think
Okay,
that's the sense of the board, yeah.
okay.
Just so you know, we may have to, I'm assuming you're the client.
Yep.
So the legal opinion would, the cost of the legal opinion would be given to you. So-
Okay. So maybe I should take a few stabs at reworking one and two.
Yeah.
And then see if we can get that frontage to come past the river. Which would take some land from two, and then I'd have to push two back into one. So he gave me some ideas, so.
I think it would be easier doing that way.
That would be easier.
Likely be cheaper.
Yeah.
So I guess I should take a stab at that, yeah.
So I'll hold off
Yeah.
on the request for
Sure.
a legal opinion until I hear back from you.
Sure, okay.
Okay.
So would you be willing to withdraw this plan tonight without prejudice and bring it back at a later
Sure.
date?
Sure.
After you see if it's doable, if it's not, then talk to Bill and
Yeah.
we can get the legal opinion and see if it's okay.
Sure.
So our next meeting is August 9th, so we should try to get it resolved by then.
Yeah, yeah, right away, yeah.
Bill, the next meeting is when?
August 9th. Set.
All right, thank you.
Do members want to hold on to a copy of the plan, or?
Well, we can have a look at
Yeah,
it.
okay. you can pick it up
These
there.
with you? We'll leave these with you, we'll take them.
I think we want to keep these plans, that's okay.
Hmm?
We want to keep paper copies?
Oh, yeah, sure, that's fine.
Okay, Bill, this, public hearing on the definitive plan, is this a continuation?
It
or
is.
So we don't have to reread the
Correct.
whole statement, okay. So we're a little bit late, this was supposed to be at 7:15, it's almost 7:45. We have a public hearing, it's a continuation, definitive plan of Sawmill Road, off Sawmill Road, entitled Sophie's Way.
Mr. Chairman, a couple of things came in late today that I made paper copies of for you.
Okay.
A,
Existing grade incorporated.
make copies of those things that
I got a bunch of plans, also the comment letter from Graves that I can submit.
So, Jeff Walsh submitted an email today, that I'll distribute to the board. This is all, no, it's all one handout.
Oh, that's one.
So this email says, good afternoon, Bill's attached is our follow-up review letter for the Sawmill Road subdivision. Please note that this review letter addresses the full set of revised plans and supporting documents distributed yesterday and the revised sheet 2 distributed today. To summarize the letter, our previous review comments that warranted document revisions have been addressed. And then attached to that email is the second peer review of Greenwich noting the comments have been addressed. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention at the beginning.
I don't know if I could distribute these, I got some full-size sets. I
Sure.
don't know if it'd make it easier
So is
for
this an
everybody to
extension
review.
or?
This is the previous applicant, full-size set.
Yes.
And I got a bunch of reduced copies if that would help as well. And I got a presentation that I'll submit to the board as well.
It's that, it's a little bit easy to look at, I guess.
Thank you for the copy, but, wait, these aren't up to
You
the
want,
task.
you want the big ones? Mr.
Hopefully your
Mr. Clark?
narrative will, provide
Is that,
information.
I don't need the full-size presentation as well, I can put up as the,
You
I
got
can
full size right now?
supply as
Oh,
well.
okay, here we
Take a
go.
look at that.
Here you go.
Okay, so just before we begin, Bill, the email that you just read from Graves, so is it basically what you're saying from that email from Graves is that they've reviewed everything and they're in agreement, or they've already made the changes for them to be in agreement? Both?
That they made the changes, asked that the first peer review letter and the second review letter says all of this concerns definitive.
Okay, I get it.
Based on this revised set of plans.
Okay, and that's the set of plans you're presenting tonight?
Correct, that's the one that you have right now.
Here's the,
Where's your pen?
yeah, okay. Strawberry, so we're in here.
Okay. So do you want to go through your presentation and
Sure.
just try to
Um,
follow along?
Yep, again, for the record, my name is Zach Gless, I'm from Existing Grade, civil engineer for the project. As I'm sure you're all aware, this is a proposed subdivision, it'd be a private subdivision way entitled Sophie's Way, located at 35 Sawmill Road in Dudley. It's located in the residential 15 zoning district, and this project it's been in front of you a couple different times here. I believe the last time it was here was to create a A&R lot at the southwest corner, which I've entitled the existing A&R Lot 1. So the intent of this roadway is to provide frontage for 4 buildable lots. The proposed roadway would remain private. We've asked for a few waivers, which we can go over on the cover sheet. Again, the intent of the road is to be kind of a stub road to go down with a cul-de-sac at the end, and to mitigate any sort of drainage runoff, there's 3 proposed rain gardens to be installed, in that all of that new impervious would be flowing into those rain gardens and to be handled appropriately. Yep, absolutely.
Sorry about that.
We're losing again?
For some reason, Dan keeps getting muted.
Sorry about that, Bill.
That's okay, Dan, you're back. Okay, Zach, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So for the utilities for the 4 lots, there's gonna be a private well for each one of these. And then we are proposing to extend the existing sewer line from Lawrence Road to service this. This plan would be sheet 3 and 4 of the plan set have been before the Dudley Water and Sewer Commission, and they have approved the proposed sewer extension from Lawrence Road to the beginning of this site, and then we would be extending that further up the road to access and serve these new lots. Like I said, there's a few rain gardens distributed amongst the site to treat that runoff, and then kind of beyond that, it's a very standard roadway beyond that. Like I said, if there's any questions, I can address those, or we can kind of go from there.
Road is actually sloped towards Sawmill.
No, so what it does is it has a bit of a dip right at the beginning, right when you come off Sawmill Road, it goes down 2% and then it goes up 2% to create a little low point right at that existing A&R Lot 1. And there's a rain garden right there to capture any sort of runoff before any of that has the chance to get out into Sawmill Road. Let me just show on the...
Is there a sheet that shows that?
Three here.
Yeah.
And the second one is over here.
Did you say there was, oh, the third one's inside the cul-de-sac?
Correct, and then in the center of the cul-de-sac, there's another rain garden. So the way it works is all of the flow from this cul-de-sac goes into the center rain garden. There's a bit of a low point right in between what's this
rain gardens are approximately 2 feet in depth?
Correct. And that's the intent of those. They're supposed to be very shallow. You plant them with native kind of wetland plants to help treat and infiltrate right there. So they're not ponds per se as, you typically think of them with a subdivision. And again, we've provided pre-treatment for those with check dams coming down. There's a bit of a proposed swale on the western side of the road. There's a bit of a swale because this road is super elevated. So it's going to be kind of tilted down towards this lot 1 and lot 5, so all the runoff sheds in the westerly direction. There's a swale that's been graded in. To feed into those, we provided some check dams, and then in the rain garden in the center, we have a gravel stone diaphragm, which treats that runoff before it goes in there, allows some sort of infiltration and cleaning of that to happen before it goes into that rain garden. And then in the operation and maintenance manual with the drainage report, there's a very typical kind of cleaning schedule for these rain gardens to ensure that they're always functioning as designed.
How does it work in the wintertime when snow's melting, but the ground is frozen? Does it still infiltrate into the rain garden?
Yes, it does, because again, the plants help break it up, and then this is it's a A-type soil out there. We did some test pits and found that, so it's very sandy soil, so that any sort of water that would be kind of accumulating in here, it just goes into the ground very quickly. It doesn't really sit on any sort of perched layers or clay or any of that.
Can you summarize Jeff Walsh's comments on the stormwater plan?
Sure. So the majority of his comment, there's just some plan discrepancies that we cleared up and whatnot. Jeff had some concerns over, as originally designed, we only had 2 rain gardens, one in the center and this one down at the entrance. And we were kind of maximizing those to the most that we could do. And then to relieve some of that and kind of deal with this runoff a little better, that's when we've included this, I'm going to call it the midpoint, but the 3rd rain garden was designed to really help manage that runoff, and that's what Jeff's main concern was that there's a lot of flow going to just these 2 rain gardens. And some of the assumptions that we revised to kind of satisfy his concerns. Let's see.
You mentioned the maintenance for these rain gardens. That's obviously going to be that's going to be part of the homeowners association agreement that
That's
they
correct.
that they will take care of this in perpetuity.
Yes. Yeah, that's it, as it's written in the stormwater report, that the association would be responsible for making sure every new owner coming in here is understanding that, and that association would be, accumulating funds to maintain those.
We're gonna have a PRMA, private road maintenance agreement is actually what it's gonna be. We don't need a full homeowners association because of the size of the project. And also, homeowners associations tend to get into things like, can you have clotheslines in your backyard and that kind of thing, where a private road maintenance agreement directly addresses the snow removal, the maintenance of the road over time, and also the maintenance of these rain gardens.
Would be binding, though.
Oh, yeah.
Is the A&R part of that?
Yeah, the A&R is gonna be included in that. The A&R, because of the fact that the A&R is gonna have its driveway on the new, private road, which was a request going back, I don't know, I think that came up way back in the preliminary stage. I don't even remember where.
Is that already sold? I saw that sale pending.
Well, that's why it's pending, because we wanna make sure that we have the agreement in place. We don't want to lose control of the lot. If I close on the lot, then the owner could,
That rain garden?
yeah. Well, no, the rain garden's a done deal, because you may or may not recall, but when we did the A&R, we had the easement on there for the rain garden.
Easement on number 5?
There
For the
will be
road?
one, again, so I'd reached out to the surveyor to try and get the definitive plan that Mylar provided this evening, and unfortunately that didn't happen in a short time, but one of the last minute changes are that we're showing now proposed bounds at all the PCs and PTs of this, for Jeff's comment as well, but there will be an easement surrounding this rain garden on that lot 5 on that definitive plan that gets recorded. Very similar to, again, what you see on that A&R lot 1, it'll be more or less the same thing.
So your A&R on lot 1 is still owned by you, Wetruba?
It's owned by Sawmill Road LLC.
And the rest of the lots are still the same owner as that?
All of this property is owned by Sawmill Road LLC.
Property being subdivided into 5 lots, you still have to do water management.
So, and again, this site,
Until that A&R plan is transferred into another deed holder. Then it'll be kind of legal.
and I could get Jeff's input on this, but when we designed this, I mean, this is designed to fully treat runoff. It handles the 100-year storm event, and there's no, untreated discharges point, so it does meet all of the requirements within stormwater management. When I do these, I don't really want to shortcut anything here. I mean, it's my name going on this, so again, this is fully compliant with stormwater management.
And what you
The
was-
only thing that just isn't provided with there is that when it is subject to stormwater management, you provide a checklist, and if I provided that checklist, I'd still be going off and checking each one of them, saying that it does meet every standard within the bylaws of the state.
What you were saying earlier is that the two rain gardens, the one in the center of the cul-de-sac and the one that's currently shown here up by Sawmill Road, was adequate to handle all the water runoff, but you wanted to do like belt and suspenders
Correct.
approach and put the third one in.
Correct, and it's the way that you model these things when you design them. We do a whole HydroCAD analysis on this, and with some of the changes that Jeff requested within that modeling of the stormwater runoff, that brought about this third rain garden, just to really ease any sort of burden on the existing structures that were designed.
So they're not working to full capacity, they don't have to work to full
Correct.
capacity.
Yeah, none of these are overtopping during a 100-year storm event. They're, designed to fully infiltrate everything that comes into it. And again, with stormwater management, if it was subject to stormwater management requirements, it's that, making sure that you're handling the 100-year storm event, you're reducing peak rates of runoff, and in my stormwater management report, we're reducing the rate of runoff post-development for every storm event. The total suspended solids are all being met to the requirements per the state, which is 80% removal rates, which we're doing. And then there's no untreated discharge points on this entire development. So again, those are really the key components that you're looking for within full compliance of stormwater management standards, which we have done here.
If I could interject too, because the 5-lot thing has come up more than once now, it keeps being mentioned. And I just want to mention that the state regulations, they talk about 5 or fewer lots not requiring 5 or fewer. So if you look at the parcel to the left with the existing house and barn, it's got over 300 feet of frontage. That's not part of this project. And secondly, for some reason, I don't understand why we're talking about as if like this country drainage with these rain gardens doesn't qualify as stormwater management. It's all about stormwater management. Matter of fact, when we had the preliminary, before Mr. Gless joined my team, when we had the preliminary subdivision, that's when I gave that presentation about rain gardens. All of that information that I presented during that meeting came from the state website on stormwater control. And we talked about how the state actually endorses this type of a system. So, there's that.
Okay, so I think Mr. Clark pointed out on the first page, we have the list of waivers that you were asking for.
I'm back.
There we go.
Where did we go with it?
You guys perk tested this?
We do drainage, perk tests are not part of drainage analysis. What it is, you go out and you do
Well, I see
test
there-
pits to see if you find
Yeah.
groundwater, but a perk test was not done. We used the
Yeah, well,
hydrologic
groundwater,
soil maps.
yep.
I'm sorry?
And did somebody witness that from the town, Board of Health? No?
It's typical that the engineer takes care of that, and then, again, it's my name on this. So there was no groundwater encountered within.
Well, I'm taking
the
your word that there
piece.
was no groundwater, but I don't know if there is any groundwater.
Well, he stamped
Like
and
it's
he stamped and
said.
signed the plans, that's what he needs to do. If it's all right with everybody, I was just thinking we go through the list of waivers one more time so we understand what's being waived or what's being asked to be waived.
Sure. Alright, so the first one is to reduce the rounded or cut back property lines at a street intersection to less than the required 30 feet. These are proposed 25-foot radiuses coming in. Actually, I'm sorry, they're 10-foot radiuses. Again, this is a private road, so, you know, with the pavement fillets coming in are definitely wide enough to accommodate vehicles coming in and out of it. Just that property line has kind of a bit of a steeper cut there.
And these have all been reviewed, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but these have all been reviewed by Graves and.
Yes.
Yeah.
Highway superintendent was okay?
I sent him a copy of the plan, I never heard back from him, so.
Well, the highway superintendent is not gonna really have a say in it because it's not gonna be a.
Well, yeah,
town-
it's
town
connected to
road.
a town road.
I spoke with Mr. Murray myself personally, and he had no objections to the plan. In fact, he was actually surprised why I wasn't having the driveway for that A&R lot come out onto Sawmill, which was a shock to me, because I actually, if I had gotten his input back during the preliminary stage, I probably could have avoided having to have that driveway on the new cul-de-sac. He felt the sightlines there are more than adequate
You
to
would
have had that
you would've-
driveway come
You
out.
would've
Well,
lost
I
your
said
rain
that
garden
too.
easement though.
Well, we wouldn't have, we would have put it somewhere else.
Okay.
And then so the second waiver is to provide a roadway cross-section that's different from the standard roadway section. Standard roadway section within the bylaws is to have a Crown's 2% road, and this is super elevated, again, to get all of that runoff to flow in the westerly direction as opposed to on the high side of the site. The next one is to reduce the required right-of-way width to 30 feet, and then the proposed pavement width to 18 feet. Again, this is a private road servicing minimal houses. We don't see that as a major conflict with any sort of vehicular travel coming in and out of it. Next one was to reduce the required dead-end street turnaround to an outside roadway diameter of 80 feet from what is required. The next one was to allow the country drainage system, which was again consistent of the rain gardens and the grass swales. A request to waive the fire cistern requirements. A request to waive the sidewalk requirements.
Question, if I may, you do have something in the way of a walkway, as I understand it, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
So there still is pedestrian access around this, it just doesn't,
All right.
fall within 100% of the requirements of the sidewalk. depth.
where that is on the plan, Zach?
Sure.
And also, that's the reason why the road is canted, so that the water runs off, and all of the trenching in, the rain garden and everything is all to the left side there, because the walkway's gonna be on the right side.
Right side.
We do have our grass swale kind of running down this westerly side, so we have a walkway that starts up here at the cul-de-sac, wraps all the way around, and then comes all the way down just on the eastern side of this property, so there is still a way to move these homes to all still walk around.
It's all within the right of way?
That's correct.
How wide is it? The walkway? How wide?
Yep.
It's on sheets.
It's in sheet 3.
Sheet shows, it's all within limits of the
Yep.
right of way. So that was that. Next one was to waive the 4.5 grass plot between the edge of roadway and sidewalk, which kind of still goes hand in hand with that last waiver that was requested. Waive street tree planting requirements, and then to waive any street lights.
Can I ask, Mr. Wetruba, would you be in agreement of putting in pole lights at every driveway?
Yeah, I could make that a requirement, sure.
That's a bylaw now.
Most, I was gonna say, most builders just assume that they have to do it.
Well,
No.
I think it is an electrical code, you have to have.
Is it?
posts.
Yeah, I thought so too. I thought there was something in there, because
Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I saw a house that didn't have one.
okay, so if you could, yeah, if we have
To have a post lamp.
a lamp post at every driveway, at least it'll light up, you know.
Sure.
It's
Yeah, it'll light
a
up the
smaller
entrances to 'em.
cul-de-sac, so it'll help light it up.
Right.
People will be able to find their driveway.
And I remember back when we talked about the preliminary, we talked about, because it's such a short cul-de-sac, that if there was a pole with a street light at the end of that, it could be significant light pollution possibly into the backs of those two front houses there.
Is that a change from the preliminary plan, which you're proposing a street light at the end of the cul-de-sac?
No, nope,
I think there is one, right, across the street?
There's a street light right,
Yeah.
there's an existing
Right
street
at the
light at this
intersection, I think.
utility pole right here.
So at the entrance.
Yeah.
And all the wiring is underground?
Right. That's the, initially I was asking for a waiver for the underground utilities, but then we talked about, since the pole's already right there, that it wouldn't be difficult to do, so, underground utilities. So that was one of the waivers we scratched off the list way back, I think during the preliminary discussion. Oh, I'm sorry, Zach, was that the end of the list, or?
Nope, that was the end of the list.
Okay.
To the list.
So dimensionally, it's pretty much the same exact thing that I brought way back when. The major changes really are all technical changes on the water gardens, the storm water. That was the big $1 million question way back when I was asking for the waivers to be approved. It was gonna be a question of, well, let's wait and see whether or not the engineering works. And it does.
Dan, do you have any questions, Dan?
No questions. Thinking back to when we first started talking about this, the biggest question in my mind, could it work, was the country drainage. I was for it as long as all the reports, all the engineers' reports, et cetera, would back that up. And as far as I can tell, with the addition, especially with the addition of the third rain garden, everything is better than I had expected in that aspect. I personally don't think that we need a sidewalk in a private area down here, so that the applicant was able to work that in as well. I think that is also gonna be nothing more than a plus for the whole entire area. So, big picture, I don't have any questions. I think that everything has turned out better than what we had thought when we first started talking about this, months ago. But that's just my opinion.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Oh, sorry.
I just asked you a question. What's a check dam?
So is,
Might be, Stan.
oh yeah, so on one of the, sheet 5, I have a detail for what that check dam is. So basically, it's just a little stone almost embankment that sits in the gravel swale. So it slows water down as it moves down those grass swales, so that you don't have some sort of big plug of water coming right into these. Slows down, it allows any sort of sediments and fines to start settling out of it as it slows it down, and it allows it to infiltrate through it on its way to that rain garden.
Will you have an operation and maintenance plan?
Yes,
Ask that.
Okay, and that will require periodic cleaning out of?
that's correct. Yeah, the grass swales, again, I know we're gonna get you all the formal paperwork submittals, but within that long-term operation and maintenance plan, the rain gardens, the grass swales, that stone diaphragm up in the roundabout, all of those have required maintenances built into them on a quarterly schedule, so you go out and you constantly make sure that they are functioning.
And Steve, how will that be paid for?
That will be paid for by the homeowners as part of the agreement for the private road maintenance plan.
So there will be a financial contribution from each of the lot owners?
Yeah, exactly.
How about the sewage lines, because this is private?
The sewage line
Problem with
is,
the sewage line.
sewage line will be, there'll be an easement granted in the private road to the town of Dudley for the sewer department.
Yeah, but town of Dudley can't rip up a private road,
They can if there's an easement.
and they gotta repave that whole thing.
I'll tell you what, I live on Lawrence Road, and there is a sewer line main that extends off of Lawrence Road and goes onto my personal property for, I don't remember how long it is, but it serves 2 houses down there. And that is maintained by the town of Dudley Sewer Department. And that comes across my property, and the way that that was accomplished was I granted them an easement. And I don't know how you're gonna fix a line, I mean, you
Well,
could,
the
you could
taxpayers
snake
on
it, you
that
could
road
run
would
it,
have
but
to
I
pay
mean,
for it,
how are you
don't
gonna fix it
they?
without digging it up?
No, I-
Taxpayers would have to
I
cover
think-
that on that
I
road.
think, Mr. Wetruba, you can simply add a clause into your homeowner agreement that if there's ever a need to dig up the road to service the sewer main, it's servicing those 5 houses, they're all on that same line. If they have to dig it up, they're all gonna pay to put the road back
Yeah,
to the way it
put-
was.
I
Put
can't
the road
imagine a
back.
homeowner not wanting that to be repaired if there's a problem with it, because we all want to be able to flush.
Well, I don't want the taxpayers picking up the bill for ripping up a
Well,
whole
it's not
road.
taxpayers, it's sewer users, cause not,
Yeah, but it's still private.
the sewer,
Can't get 'em to do anything.
the sewer department in
No.
Dudley is an enterprise system, so it's not the taxpayers that are paying it, it's the sewer users.
You have an easement on this for a sewage line? I don't see.
No, again, the
No
definitive, the
easement in
definitive
that?
plan will have that easement as well. It'll call it out.
This is not I believe this is not the
The-
final definitive plan,
The
correct?
surveyor, Mr. Levesque, is gonna be submitting a Mylar that would be getting signed, and that's just gonna get what gets recorded at the registry, and that will have that easement on there, in addition to the other easement for the third rain garden.
Due to circumstances beyond our control, we were not able to work on this last week. So that's,
Says it is, or are we waiting for the Mylar to be finalized?
That was gonna be my next question, so,
I think all your concerns have been addressed. I think you're ready to take a vote, and you can make
contingent,
conditional upon the.
condition until the final plans come in and they show exactly what we think they're gonna show.
I'd like to see a final plan before I vote on it.
Well, before you have to endorse the Mylars. So at that point in time, you would see whether it's there, and if it's not there, you wouldn't endorse the Mylars, and therefore you wouldn't be able to record the plan, so.
Dan, any input?
Yeah, Tom, whenever the plans came in, a couple of months ago, and it was schematic in nature, I shared your concerns. How can we approve something whenever nothing's being shown what we're talking about?
Yeah.
And I think in this instance, a lot of what we're talking about is being shown, and I think anything that's being changed, in my opinion, is more minor in nature as opposed to a major overhaul.
So what's the,
I think I would be comfortable saying, hey, as long as those conditions are met that we're talking about here, that we're laying out here, that I don't have any problems with granting an approval based on that condition.
so the 2 major things that are missing on these plans, as I understand it, is 1, the sewer easement,
Correct.
and 2 was correct?
The easement for that rain garden, so show those 2 easements on the definitive plan, and I know we're more than amenable as having that as a condition of approval, that if that doesn't come in on that definitive, then it's,
There's no other, as far as you know, there's no other missing pieces from this set of plans to the set of plans that's coming for.
that's correct. Those are gonna be the only 2 things that come on that definitive plan, is just those 2 easements, the one for the sewer, and that's gonna encompass the entire right-of-way of that road, and then just that easement on lot 5 for that.
Does this current plan show an easement for the utilities?
The utilities are within the right-of-way of the road. So I guess that easement for the sewer would also be a utility easement as well.
10
So we'll
feet
just
off
call
the
that a
road.
sewer and utility access easement.
National Grid's 10 feet off the road, easement.
Well, it looks
I know
like,
I had a problem with
it
National
looks like
Grid on that,
underground
too.
utilities, according to your cross-section, is under the gravel walkway.
Yeah.
Yes.
If that has to be dug up, it's only a gravel walkway being dug up, not somebody's,
Right.
not
That's
somebody's
correct.
common.
Very easy to access
driveway.
it, but again, we'll make sure that the limits of the right-of-way include a sewer and utility access easement, and
And
create
that'll
that
be-
verbiage as such.
And that'll be on the next plan.
Yes, that'll be on that Mylar definitive that gets submitted.
our hope was that we could get the vote tonight, and get an approval tonight, and then we could bring in the definitive plan, and Mr. Scanlon could verify that the missing items are on there, and that nothing has been marketably changed, and then they would be available for
So-
signature. I know in the past, when I was on the board, we've done that where the plan or the Mylar wasn't ready, and they would just be available down in the lobby.
So we're not signing anything tonight, we're just taking a vote that the definitive plan that's presented with the 2 contingencies of the easements.
Right.
So the process from this point is that I write the decision, you review it, make any comments or suggestions, then you sign the decision, which gets recorded with the town clerk, which starts a 20-day appeal period. After that 20-day period expires, if there are no appeals, then you can endorse the Mylars. And so it's a couple of meetings away before that would happen.
So we got plenty of time to prepare that definitive plan.
Mr. Chairman, if it's in order, I think I'd make a motion, or if you have another
No,
question
we
or
have to-
concern?
We have to close the public hearing
Okay.
first, but before we
Fine.
do that, I think we have to give the public a chance to speak if there's somebody here that wants to speak about it.
Nope.
Okay, so isn't that correct? We would close the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna close the public hearing at 8:15, and then if somebody would like to make a motion,
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the proposed residential definitive subdivision plan as presented this evening based on the contingencies that we've identified being completed at some point in the near future.
okay, so,
Would you include the waivers in that motion?
Yes, waivers, I'm calling it contingencies and waivers included.
okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, roll call vote, Mr. Clark?
Richard Clark, aye.
Mr. Chinaki?
Aye.
Edmondson.
Mr. Edmondson, sorry,
Yeah, aye, no problem.
Mr. Durgan?
Aye.
Mr. Horn? Aye,
Unanimous.
okay.
Okay, this is the document. This is back in order, but we'll get them all out there anyway.
3, 4, 5.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Edmiston, for taking time from your vacation.
Pulling up trees here,
Okay, so that takes care of 7:15, and now we're back on, we're not on schedule, we're still 30 minutes late, sorry, gentlemen. 7:45, we have a continuation of the public hearing for a modification of a previously approved site plan at 35 to 37 Chase Avenue. Did you guys sign in before you leave?
Us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
You did, okay, thank you. Good evening.
Yourself?
Yep, please sign in. And again, Bill, this is a continuation, so we don't have to go back and read the public hearing notice, we're all set. Good evening.
How are you? I was expecting Frank to be here. My understanding is the public hearing was closed at the last meeting and we're waiting for a vote at this point.
No, it hasn't been closed.
So I'm here to answer any questions you guys have, I guess. I was told it was closed, but. it must
We
be-
were waiting to see if there was an agreement between yourself and the Water and Sewer Department.
There's no agreement. I don't really understand why there would need to be an agreement at this point. We're asking for modification concerning the manufacturing only. That'd be an increase of water use of somewhere between 50 to 100 gallons per day. This is no excessive utilization of the water from the town road. I would expect that based upon the concerns that are raised here, that once we come back for the site plan concerning the cultivation aspect, that there should be a conversation with the Water and Sewer Department at that point due to the large usage of water, due to the fact that this is not going to be any sort of substantial burden on the current infrastructure coming from Brandon and Chase Ave. I don't see any necessity to have any agreement with Water and Sewer. We're asking to put down some concrete pads on the facility to hold HVAC systems, and ultimately then to just allow us to utilize that building back there to do baking and some edibles. I mean, we're not looking to do the cultivation at this point on this site plan, so that's gonna have to come back before you due to the fact we're gonna be putting up a large greenhouse structure, and at that point, due to the increase of water, I do think a conversation with Water and Sewer and coming to an agreement would be necessary. But this time, I don't have anything to come to an agreement with them on. We're giving the town a 3% HCA fee. That is to be utilized by the town for any sort of cost that the town is incurring strictly for this business. For the last 2 years, we've been paying that fee, and it's been going directly into the town's general fund without us asking for any sort of documentation showing that the business has ultimately put any sort of burden upon the town's resources. We're not asking the town to demonstrate that at this point, but if they do think that infrastructure upgrades are necessary, that 3% is ultimately under the state law what that money should be utilized for.
I thought you were replacing fire hydrants and running a water line across
Moving the
whole
fire hydrants
building.
back, and we're just running a line on our property. We're not increasing any sort of water use from on our property beyond an additional 50 to less than 100 gallons per day in that building directly behind where the current dispensary is. That would be ultimately tantamount to what was being utilized there when the previous owner was there, with the drafters building being utilized and all the storage. I mean, we're not increasing anything beyond, once again, that 50 to 100 gallons per day. I don't see how that's gonna put any sort of unnecessary burden upon the roadway. But once again, the state law does have us giving, under our host agreement, a 3% fee from our gross sales on a yearly basis. Under the state law, that is to be utilized for any sort of burden that we are putting on town resources. The law has changed, and we're supposed to be asking the town to provide us with proof of why that 3% is being utilized, and if it's not, we're actually supposed to be maintaining that inside of our books and not turning that over. But at this point, we're not asking to do that. We're moving forward to continue giving the 3%, as the HCA was written.
Do you know how much you provided already for the H?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I know that we've given it on a quarterly basis, and that the town administrator's office and the tax collector should certainly have that information.
Is that
We did write a
equal?
check, I believe, in June was for the last quarter.
Is that equal to excise tax? Is it about 3%, or is the excise only 3% on the marijuana products?
It's 3% on the cannabis products, I believe. It's not 3% on anything that's non-taxable.
But the HCA is everything, right?
3% on our gross sales, yes. So the town actually gets a 3% from us, 3% from the end user, plus I believe there's additional tax they get back from the state. But the 3% community impact fee that's specified directly in the HCA, under the state law and the regulations how they're written, is to be of money that's paid to the town to offset any sort of burden the facility has put on resources from the town. There's an actual meeting that the CCC is handling, I believe, on Tuesday to specifically go into regulation changes they're making. But over the last 2 years, we've made no inquiries to the town about how that money is being utilized. There are several cannabis dispensaries, cultivators, and manufacturers who are now suing their host towns because they weren't asked to or provided information about how that percentage is being utilized. Our stance is not to do that. Dudley's been good to us. We've worked closely with all the boards. We've had no issues with the fire or police departments when we've had to do that. In fact, the police department, if there's ever an accidental alarm that goes off, or we've had to call because of any sort of unruly customers, they've arrived immediately and been very, very easy to work with. So because Dudley's worked with us so closely, we're not trying to do anything that would harm the relationship we have with it. But I do expect that when we come back for the cultivation aspect, a conversation about the infrastructure off the road and how that may be directly impacted by an excessive amount of water being utilized is appropriate, and that an agreement between water and sewer, the town of Dudley, and the applicant at that point would likely be necessary. But due to the small usage and increase that this would have, I don't think that any sort of burden being placed on the applicant to redo pipes for the town is necessary or appropriate to even ask.
But on that plan, there was water, new pipes and everything on your plan. That was the question. That was.
New pipes on
like,
our
we don't have
property.
the authority from water and sewage until
running
they
pipes
get
on our
that
property.
okay.
On our
And it'll
property.
come to us, and we didn't really have a problem with what you were proposing for EACs and everything. That was a big thing.
Well, we're running pipes on our property, so that's gonna tie into the existing infrastructure off the road.
Yeah, and was that approved by water and sewer? Just all we were kinda looking at. Was it, Scott?
My understanding is that the issue here is that the pipes running from Brandon Road through Chase Ave to where our property ties up are older pipes, and that there's a fear that any sort of excessive water usage coming off of that could ultimately lead to a break in that pipe that would shut down all water use down Brandon Road, Chase Ave, and I believe is that Office Road that goes up directly across from it. I do understand that that would be a concern if we were ultimately pulling 10, 20,000 gallons of water per day, and that was gonna be a consistent flow going through that infrastructure. The pipes are old, I do see how that could be a burden on it. I mean, I live in Webster, we have massive water issues on the pipes in that town because they're so very old. I fully understand the cost of replacing those pipes. I think it's about $1 million per mile is the estimate the town of Webster got. So I do think that when there is a conversation before your board about the cultivation aspect, we will have to work out an agreement with the Water and Sewer Department in the town of Dudley about how to do that, whether that's implementing a switch at the corner of Brandon Road and Chase Ave, so that if there's a break on Chase Ave, that would allow Brandon Road to still access, or if there's a break on our facility that, you know, the individuals that are living on Office Road won't have an issue. But at this point, we're not asking to implement anything that would put a direct burden on the existing structures of the water lines coming off of Chase Ave.
Saying on the plans you proposed, you had a couple different water things.
We're running the pipe around, the existing pipe that goes through the mill. We are asking to run it around the building, so if there's a break on our property, it won't flood the mill.
Yeah.
And then when we spoke to the fire department about the site plan, they ultimately just asked that if we're gonna do that we take the existing fire hydrants and move them back closer to the riverfront for their access purposes. It was so that it's safer for them to be able to utilize and go around the property. But those changes aren't going to ultimately affect the water use beyond the increase that we're asking for. And I think from,
So you're just gonna take that off the plan for now, and then propose your AC, and then call
no,
it
I
done?
don't see why changing the pipes on our property would ultimately affect us needing to change the pipes on Chase Ave.
Talking about Chase Ave. I'm
That's
just,
what
like,
we were told, that the issue is that the Water and Sewer
Well, you
Department
mentioned
believes.
that we were gonna do AC, and then it came up that you're gonna change the water pipe through the building. That's how it all started. Like, I had no problem.
No,
with
the
either
issue
of
that
them.
we've had ultimately with the Water and Sewer Department is how much water would be necessary for the cultivation,
On that
and
one
whether or not
building.
the pipes can handle that. And then we explored potentially putting in a well when we were looking at it, and then we were told that that was gonna lead to DEP restrictions. So we said, listen, instead of holding everything up, let's take off the cultivation aspects, deal with the pads for manufacturing, and allow us to run the existing pipe that goes through the boat, stop it at the mill, run it around the exterior of the building, and then tie it back in the back. So that's what's on the plan that Frank made the changes of to our first meeting here, and we removed the pads that were next to the cultivation building, which would be the old drafter's side.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, so it's your understanding that there are no issues pending with regards to water and sewer?
My understanding from Water and Sewer, and I believe there's someone here from
There's
Water and
someone
Sewer,
here,
is that,
and maybe
if we
we'll get
pulled
that
a bunch of water off of the road, there's a fear that we would be ultimately a detrimental risk to the existing people.
So your
Because we're not
understanding
pulling it,
then-
I don't understand.
It's your
I
understanding there are
apologize.
no pending issues with water and sewer, as you understand it at this point?
No, we have a special permit that was approved for us to do this. We're ultimately here just to put down those pads and to change the existing
Okay.
pipe that's on the property. I mean, I do believe, based on everything that's come up over the last 4 or 5 months, that when I come back for you for the site plan concerning the addition of the cultivation, that Water and Sewer and I will have to have a very long discussion about what they believe the structure aspects are and how we can work with them to make sure that we're not doing anything that would put any of our abutters in harm's way or allow them not access to water.
Let me try and rephrase the question so that perhaps there's a one-word answer here somewhere. Your understanding that at present, cultivation is not on the table at this time, as I understand it, is that correct?
Cultivation on the plan that we're asking you to vote on today
Yes,
is not on.
part of
it
this.
is
So,
not.
that aside, then your understanding is that there are no existing issues that you have, that you're aware of, with water and sewer?
Not a single individual from Water and Sewer has ever contacted me to specify to me that there's an issue. That is
think
my
I'll take
answer.
that as a
That's my
yes.
answer.
So that building.
So I can't answer that.
Right,
I've never
right,
been
right,
told
but
by
no,
Water
I
and
just
Sewer
asked
there's
if
an
it was
issue.
your understanding, and what I think I understood was, your understanding was that no one had contacted you, so that I'll take as a yes in answering the question. Thank you.
No, that's not my answer. My
That's not
answer
your
is,
answer?
I was never told, so I can't
Okay.
tell you yes or no. I
Again,
would
I'm
be
going back to
assuming.
the phrase that I used, your understanding. You
I
were
don't
never
know.
told-
That's the
okay,
answer.
Okay.
All right, so-
I can't just make an assumption. I don't know the answer. to
All
that.
right, then your understanding is that you don't know?
I don't know. I
All
can't
right,
answer your
So
question.
not knowing implies that you don't have any, or understand that there are any issues pending.
No, from what I've garnered through conversations is that there's a fear if there's a large amount of water being dragged off the system, that the pipes as they exist could be ultimately be put in harm's way. So we are trying to bypass that with
Then,
this point.
if I may, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but whose fear is this that you have knowledge of somehow?
We were told
Whose
that.
fear is that, the Water and Sewer
We were
Department?
told that. I was told through third parties that some of the supervisors of water and sewer may have those concerns, but they were never brought to my attention.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if the gentleman in the audience is prepared to speak to this issue, but I know he is involved with the Water and Sewer Department and might
So
have.
the building that you're
opportunity
working on
to
now,
put- shed
that's
some
like
light on
phase
this
one,
subject.
and then the rest of it is another phase?
So this would allow us to take the building where Ted Kistner used to have all his big storage, the metal building directly behind the dispensary.
that would be
This would
phase
allow
one.
us to do work in that, which would be simply for our manufacturing
And you already have
license,
the water
no
line in
cultivation
there.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
The only other proposal that Frank did put on on it was that there was information that was brought to his attention that years and years ago, there was a line break, and that the line break on the property led to the mill having water come into it. So Frank's perspective is, while we're doing work there, stop the existing line at the mill entrance, run it around the building, and then just have it tie in the back. And then when
That's a whole nother
fire
phase.
came, they just asked us, would you guys mind moving the hydrants back, because it'd be an easier access way for our trucks? And we said, we have no issue doing that.
We're gonna get to you in 1 second, Mr.
Okay, Scott Sikowski, I'm the current chairman of the Water Sewer Commission. We had asked towards the beginning of the year to have a peer review done, and that was done. It was dated May 9th. And in that was outlined our concerns. They're the engineers cited the same concerns that our full-time personnel have, our superintendent has with that area. It's all AC pipe, it's old, it's brittle. We've had a number of breaks down. We've had 2 breaks in the neighborhood in the last 2 years, but there's been a number over the years in that side of town. We're in the process of replacing a bunch of it up on First Ave and Fairview. At some point, our major concern with the mill was that large use, anything that might, and it's all outlined in the peer review. The any kind of a water hammer from large use, cultivation type use. We understand that you're not moving forward with cultivation at this time. That is going to be a major concern with that. The other concern is, obviously there's fire protection. That building, I don't know how much of the building you're planning on using we never saw that, so our concerns are tempered with a little bit of ignorance isn't the right word, but we just didn't know.
We're not changing any of the existing fire suppression
Okay.
system on the property.
About how much of the building are you planning on using? I mean, that's what
So this use would allow us to use the dispenser that's currently there.
right.
And would allow us to utilize the manufacturing building directly behind it. The the old mill building
Okay, yeah.
itself is going to stay vacant until we come back and do a site plan
Okay.
concerning cultivation.
So it will still be fire protected.
It has a dry
system.
throughout, yes, sir.
Okay. And the way that neighborhood is set up, and again, it's detailed there. The only shut off for that whole neighborhood is at Schofield Ave.
Yes, at the corner.
So if something happens down there, it gets shut off at Schofield Ave, all of Chase Ave, the couple of houses on Office Hill that have water, and the mill gets shut off until it gets fixed. Typically, it's 3 to, well, we just had a break not too long ago that took them 8 hours. That's the kind of concerns.
And just going to that, I do know that one that was brought up through one of the emails, Frank said when we do cultivation, adding a new shut-off somewhere closer to the mill would make sense so that we can protect, if there's a direct break at the mill, that it would allow for Schofield Brandon to not be affected due to anything that happened on our property.
Absolutely.
And we do believe that, that's like I said, I think when we come back for the cultivation aspect, where we're gonna say, hey guys, listen, we're gonna pull a ton of water off. If your pipe breaks because we're doing that, then we wanna make sure we have redundancies in place to make sure, one, we don't want to affect our neighbors. I mean, right now, we've had a great relationship with our neighbors. I would understand them having substantial concerns if they did believe that a pipe break due to us would lead to them having 8 hours of no water. That wouldn't be a pleasant situation for anybody.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, so what we are looking at for consideration this evening is exclusive of cultivation.
Yes, the cultivation aspect was
Cultivation
taken off.
is
So that was,
in the future at some unknown date.
we'll have to come back to you, because once
Right,
again, that would
right,
include
understood. It's not
the greenhouses.
part of the issue at hand
It
this
is
evening,
not.
as I understand it. Is that correct?
Water use, it is not. The water use that this
Okay.
before you would take would be somewhere between 50 to 100 gallons a day.
It is,
Mr. Clark, if I may, I have
It's
to.
normal use.
I have sat in planning board meetings from South Carolina to Bangor, Maine, and I've never heard of an applicant come in piecemeal. I want a pad, I want a parking spot, without talking about the whole entire picture. If you want a retail location, you don't talk about the anchor store and start building from there. You have a plan in place for everything, because there are requirements that have to be made. So of course, if cultivation is being planned on the future, and we've heard that said about 20 times so far tonight, then cultivation is on the table. Because we can't approve anything that isn't gonna approve that can't support the requirements of the cultivation. So this is all baloney so far. Okay?
We have a special permit that's
Nobody
been
in
voted
their
on that
right-
allows
I need-
us.
I
I'm
need-
asking
I
to put
need-
down
I need-
blocks.
Sir,
applicants to
sir,
be quiet for
he
5
has a
minutes. I've listened to them for 45, I want 5 minutes now.
Well, I'm just putting down blocks, sir. It's blocks that we already had approved to do this. I can pull as much water right now
Sir.
that I certainly want.
I've had enough.
I don't
Sir.
understand. I
He's
can't
talking.
build cultivation because I don't know the cost.
Sprinkler line
He's talking.
Without any kind of shut-off valve to do it later. To dig something up and just do it later. That isn't common sense. You plan for the future. This is all baloney. This is all trying to get us behind the wall. We're gonna do one thing at a time and then try to pin the planning board, the town of Dudley in the corner. The applicant has said many times they're gonna work with us. That's baloney. They've said exactly what they're planning on doing. They pay us supposedly 3%. And it's our requirement to do that money to better the town for them. They're not planning on working for us.
That's not what I
The
said.
3%, now it's our business to shut up. So this is
I don't
baloney.
appreciate that,
Come
sir.
on, see the final
Don't tell me to
plan.
shut up. That's not
What's gonna happen
appropriate.
in the future? This is not right. And I swear, if there's a fire out there, and if those lines all open, I bet you'll be using more than 50 to 100 gallons a day to put that fire out.
That's
And when
different.
the lines
That's a
break,
different
that,
issue.
it's not on the town of Dudley, that's on you.
Well, sir, the individual here from the water department just said that if we're pulling 50 to 100 gallons a day, that'd be normal use for property.
You have a change
We
in-
can't
you have a
do,
change
we,
in use,
we
I don't
can't,
care about
we
that.
can't put
You have
cultivation
one
on there, because I can't tell you the size of cultivation at this point. The market has changed drastically. For me to come forward to you and say I'm putting 100,000 square feet of cultivation on this, and then having to come back to you and draw that down, wouldn't be fair. We have a special permit and a site plan that was approved, that if we built it out, we wouldn't have to do it. I'm ultimately coming before you to say, we're gonna make changes because the market's changed. I'm not telling you that the 3% that we give you has to be utilized for our benefit whatsoever. That's actually not how the 3% is supposed to use. The 3% is supposed to be used that if the applicant, DMA Holdings, is putting any sort of substantial burden on the town that is costing the town money, that the town can say, we want up to 3% of your gross revenues to offset that cost. That is how the law in Massachusetts is written. That is not me saying it. The law as it was written when the law passed said the town, through an HEA, can ask for up to 3% to offset costs directly related to the use of that property. We've been giving 3% on a quarterly basis since this opened without questioning it at all. And we're not, at this point, going to question it. There There are people in Uxbridge that are being sued right now by their cultivators and their dispensaries because they aren't happy that they didn't get that breakdown. We're not doing that. And I'm not saying the 3% should ever be utilized for our benefit. We're giving it to you. Right now, it's going to your general fund. We have no issue with that. But the water individual here just said 50 to 100 gallons a day would be a normal use coming off those pipes. It's not a substantial burden off of it. The only reason our site plan would change for cultivation, which was approved 2 years ago, is because the market's changed, and to ultimately not be one of these companies, including large MSOs that have been filing bankruptcy and leaving the state, is to make sure that any expansion we do is going to be able to get funded through the current state of the cannabis market in Massachusetts. 2 years ago, 1 pound of cultivated marijuana sold in the wholesale market for between $5,500 to $7,000 a pound. It's currently between $1,500 to $1,800 a pound. If we had built out a $30 million facility, we would ultimately be closing our doors and walking away because it would not be sustainable. I can't come to you right now with a plan concerning what the back of that property is going to look like, because it's going to change as the market changes. If more cultivators leave the market, we are going to be able to build a larger grow, and we can demonstrate that to you. If I put 100,000 square feet back there right now, it wouldn't be fair because I can't tell you we're actually going to utilize that amount of space or how much water we're going to utilize. We are waiting for the market to ultimately calm down, because over the last 18 to 12 months, it has gone haywire. There are large MSOs just closing their door and leaving the state. They're leaving marijuana sitting inside buildings and just leaving. We don't want to fail. We want to keep our stores open. Our next thing is manufacturing, because being able to white label and have higher margins in our store is a way for us to become more profitable. And ultimately that leads to even more revenue being generated and coming to the town because our profitability goes up. So I'm not trying to piecemeal this. I'm trying to be realistic that this facility and the way the market is does not allow us to ultimately come forward and give you what the back of that property is going to look like. But when we do, we recognize, and our engineers ultimately agreed with the water department, that an additional shutoff valve would be necessary, because if our excess water use led to a pipe break, we do not want to affect any of our direct neighbors or anyone on Brandon Road or Schofield Ave whatsoever. We're not trying to set this up to ultimately be a deterrent or detrimental to anyone near us. To say we are is just unfair. I mean, we have literally tried to do everything. We understand water and sewer have large issues, and that is the reason we took the cultivation off, so that doesn't hamper our ability to start the manufacturing process while we go through this process with the water and sewer department and figure out a way that makes sense financially for everybody of how to get this facility built that's not going to ultimately bankrupt the company. Because if we had built this out how we originally proposed, I can tell you right now, I don't think the business would be open, because there are places right now in Holyoke closing, there are places in Northampton closing, out east. I don't want Greatest Hits to be one of those, and I don't think the town of Dudley would like us to be one of those. So we're taking it as the market is evolving, and we are going to come back to you with cultivation, because that is our next step after manufacturing, to be able to have enough product grown on our facility to manufacture it and then fill up our 3 stores.
Right.
And then we can have, instead of a 50% markup, we'll be able to have a 75 to 80% markup.
Can your engineer give us a plan so we know what we're looking at before we keep
He
going?
did. I believe on our second time back, he came, he took everything off from the cultivation aspect. It should be the pipe around the building and the pads to the left and the back of the existing metal building, which you guys saw when I believe 3 of you came for the walkthrough.
Can I ask you, the change of the pipe around the building
Yeah,
and the
exactly.
fire hydrants, moving them closer to the river, does that at all in any way get impacted by the River Protection Act or anything like that? I mean, I don't know how close you are to the river now, or how close you're gonna move them to the river?
Well, like Dan said, you're in the future, you're gonna expand, so you're gonna dig another pipe in there?
Sorry? I didn't hear your
Expand.
question, I apologize.
If you do expand in the future, are you planning to dig another pipe in there to meet your expectations, or?
we ultimately
or are
come
you gonna
off-
say, hey, water already approved our water line, we're gonna use this?
Well, we've ultimately
And
been
then-
utilizing the existing pipe that came off.
Yeah, but you don't know.
property, But we can't pull the water right now. We know we can't pull the water right now. There's not enough available for what we're proposing. We don't want to, we've had conversations, we've had individuals go to the water, I haven't gone, and they've raised concerns and said, listen, if you guys want to pull X amount of water, You just can't. And we've gone back and said, listen, we're gonna have to change our plan because right now the town of Dudley, as it's structured, doesn't allow it. I also understand that Dudley's different than some of the other towns around here. For example, Webster has a very large fund because most of the individuals in Webster are on town water and sewer. Dudley is kind of the complete opposite, where that fund that's funded from water and sewer money is substantially lower because a lot of individuals in the town are on their own private septic and have, so that's why I'm saying we're not trying to do anything that would ultimately lead to a large increase of cost to the town. We're not trying to deplete the enterprise fund that the water and sewer department has. We are gonna work with water and sewer to come to an agreement in a way that's financially makes sense for us and financially makes sense for the town.
We have a revised plan.
I'm sorry?
Revised plan?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a revised plan, because that was the
And
issue
it
at the
really
first
answered
meeting.
the question that I asked. Have you gone to somebody to see if this relocation of the water pipes and the hydrants are gonna in any way affect the,
I can't, I don't believe so. I haven't, no. I believe that, I don't know if that was asked previously when Frank was here. The only reason that the hydrants were ever even were in our mind ever gonna be moved, is because it was a request made by the fire department just for,
No, I thought it was a request made by you, so you didn't have to heat that water pipe going through that building.
No.
I remember right.
No, we could run the pipe right around and connect to the existing fire hydrants. We were at,
Your
the
pipe
fire
was going
department
through the
told us,
building, that's why you were heating it, to keep that pipe from freezing.
well, we're still gonna heat the building. We have to heat the building.
Yeah, no, but I
Yeah.
think that was your complaint.
No,
was
the
you didn't
reason
wanna
we have to,
pick up
the reason we're asking to
mill.
move it is that if the pipe breaks, it is going to
Building.
flood the mill.
Yeah. you have
And
to heat
before we
that,
bought
and
the,
you- that was a
before we
big
bought the
cost to
property,
you.
in the winter before we bought the property, a pipe broke in the old, storage part in the rear that was knocked down and ultimately led to a massive flooding of the interior of the first floor. And that was just due to the weather concerns. We are paying, right now, because we did knock down the back part of that building where the old oil tank was and had that removed, we have a high heating bill on a yearly basis now because we're bringing in external heaters to keep that building at
You
about
got
60
dry
degrees.
well, you got a dry system in there, so you wanted to get rid of that pipe going through the building, so you wouldn't have to heat it.
We have to heat that building. There's no way we can leave it. There's piping running through that building. I can't let that building ultimately have an issue and become flooded and iced over.
Well, you can
We're
always
maintaining the roof
winterize
on
it.
it, because there was a roof leak at one point, and we had to go on the roof and fix that. I mean, we're not, that mill, and a promise we made to the town was that we were going to keep that mill and make sure that it was in good condition, and we didn't change the look of that building whatsoever. I mean, I can go back and put HVAC systems on the top of this thing, because we do have a variance, but we're actually gonna work with the town to make this feasible for everybody.
all right, I think we need to have your engineer come back and give us
Yeah, I agree with that.
the rundown of what you want exactly to do.
This is the 7th time we've been here, and now every time we come, there's new questions that we get asked. I mean, it's hindering the business of the operations. You've had the plans with all this on there for meeting after meeting without any of these questions being raised. The water department's now told us that the proposed use of water is a normal use that's not, and I'm not gonna try to speak for you, would ultimately be a detriment to the town, and yet, every time we come, we can't get a vote. And I mean, we have an existing plan. If I put these HVAC systems on the roof, I could probably just move forward with everything.
So Mrs.
That might be what I have to do, is just go back and put the HVAC systems on the roof.
And
Yeah, some of the problems that I had the last time we had this meeting was I wasn't understanding exactly, we seem to be talking about a couple of HVAC and equipment pads in the loading dock. But then the plan, and one second, let me get the plan number. The third drawing in the set, drawing C 2.2, shows a striping plan. So there's parking spaces being striped on either asphalt or non-asphalt surfaces. And, these, to me, we're not talking about these things. These things don't come up, but they're on the plan. We're made to believe that this is just a couple of equipment pads, no big deal. But there's other things that are on here that, to me, have ramifications. I personally think that, as far as parking is concerned, we're talking pervious, we're talking impervious surfaces. I understand the applicant's reasons why they can't show us the whole final plan, the market, I understand that. But one of the reasons why it would be advantageous for all of us is if we had that final plan, we could kind of figure out maybe how many parking spots are required. And yes, there are probably more than enough on the site, but this site was built in who knows when. Parking, the whole entire idea of parking lots, impervious spaces, and stormwater has changed much over the past years. And none of those items are being talked about at all. And it just seems that there's this rat tail of issues that are associated with this that just aren't being shown on the plans. We're supposed to be talking about an equipment pad, but there's striping shown. And the striping has ramifications to impervious surfaces, but we're being told that they're not changing. And I just don't see the big picture. I just don't understand what's going on. Are we addressing all the issues that we need to address, or are they trying to be, are we sidestepping them because we're not talking about them, because we're talking about water? I don't know. I'm still just as confused now as I was the last time we had this meeting.
So 2 years ago, we brought a parking plan and showed approximately, I believe, 180 spots on the property, well beyond anything that is necessary under the bylaws. So that plan was done at the last time. I mean, at this point, I'll get an updated plan. I can't show the cultivation. I mean, there's just no possible way I can give you a cultivation right now. And then if I come back in 6 months, everyone's gonna say, well, why'd you show us this cultivation building on it when you were before us last time? Because it's gonna change. I mean, right now, anyone that's building anything over 60,000 square feet isn't utilizing that much space. So we're trying to figure out what the proper range of space is to allow us to manufacture it and have a wholesale market that would allow us to make money without having hundreds of pounds of marijuana sitting inside a storage bin frozen. Because a lot of these cultivators right now have vaults that are being just full of product that they can't sell, and then they're penning it out to dispensaries as it gets closer and closer to its expiration date, trying to pass the buck onto them to deal with what happens if the product expires. So I just, realistically, I can't bring you what the cultivation will. If there's other items you want to plan, I certainly can do that. I mean, I can also, we did get a variance, I believe a year ago, to allow for items to be placed on the roof. I mean, I may go back and just see if that's feasible now and cost effective, because we ultimately are trying to move forward with this project. We have deals in place with partners for white labeling and live rosin extraction and ultimately edible making, and we can't move forward with those partnerships and those deals we have in place because I can't tell them that when they can expect us to be able to open up our doors for our manufacturing now. We have deals with at least 5 companies in the state about doing white labeling with them and having their product come in so we can do extraction on it, and it's all deemed upon us being able to ultimately manufacture on site. And
We understand that. Bill, when was the last time they were in with their engineer and making?
Well, I was just gonna point out, we have a letter from the engineer, Frank Hartland, dated March 13th, 2023, which identifies the items that they're requesting modification of the previous site plan. So these items are the ones that they're requesting approval from the planning board under the current site plan.
All right, so that's,
Really, the task before the planning board is to act on just the plan you have before you. You can't really talk about something you don't have, like the cultivation.
Right.
So you can only really work with the plan that's before you.
whose jurisdiction would the river be? Is that conservation
Well,
or?
it's my understanding that the River Protection Act provides exemptions for previously developed sites, which this obviously is.
Okay.
So the standards are much less strict for a site which has already been developed.
So moving the hydrants in the water
So I
line
believe
shouldn't be,
if you're doing work within the existing developed area, you don't have to comply with the setbacks requirements for the River Protection Act.
because typically, isn't it 200 feet?
It would be for a vacant site.
Okay,
we did go to conservation.
and they didn't have any problems?
Conservation approved the plan.
You've already got their
Went to
approval?
conservation before we came before you guys.
Would you like me to read the list from Frank?
Yeah, go for it.
Would that help?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The site plan modifications consist of the following items: HVAC pads and bollards, temporary generator pad, no permanent generator facilities proposed, ethanol tank storage pad, loading dock, dumpster pad and compactor, accessible spaces and gravel parking lot, demolition of existing bridge between Building 1 and Chase Avenue, gravel fire lane along Building 1, site perimeter lighting, restriping of Chase Avenue and Brandon Road for original approval conditions, repair of existing drainage between the dispensary and Building 1, and finally, water main loop around building, including hydrant location coordination with the Dudley Fire Department and new Building 6 sprinkler connection.
So they are changing the drainage.
Sorry?
It's a minor.
Yeah,
drainage
minor
work.
drainage works.
And these, and all these requests that they have, they've already been looked at by Graves, and we have a sign off from Graves.
We do.
Okay, then,
Right, so Mr. Chairman, 2 comments to that.
Yep.
The first one is, we just heard what is asked of being approved, then why is there a striping plan included in the plan set? That would be the first thing. The second thing would be, I don't believe that ADA access, wheelchairs are allowed over gravel. There's a slope requirement, there are a lot of other issues. I don't think that's even allowed. So I have issues with both of those. My third issue would be, the second we start talking about water, we start talking about the water pipe situation out there. So if I remember correctly, last time that this was being spoken about, we were so close to making a motion to approve everything when it came up that there's 3 or 4 other things going on. And they got stopped, and we've been waiting now for the past, I don't know how many months for this to come up.
since March.
And we're at the same spot, we're looking, the pads, I don't have a big problem with them, but it's all, everything else that's hanging on to the pad is where the problems come up. So if we're asking for the pads, why not just show the pads and the plan and go from there?
Yeah, and that's it.
We did a site walk, a couple members of the
Yeah.
planning board met with the engineer, and we did walk the property. And Frank McFarland pointed out the areas where changes were being made. And I think at that meeting, people that were there were generally satisfied that changes were fairly minor and would certainly be within the purview of an acceptable site plan application.
Who was the ones that went to that site plan walk?
Mr. Clark.
I believe also.
So I guess myself and Mr. Edmiston are at a loss because we didn't attend that meeting, but.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
I believe the reason that you guys didn't attend is it would have been an open meeting law violation, so we had to
We
keep.
could have
it-
just, we could have just posted.
Yeah,
We had posted.
of
We
course.
had posted
Oh, I
it.
was, I apologize.
Okay.
I mean, we ultimately made the amendment to the first plan we gave you because as, I can't remember his name, I apologize, Mr. Edmiston stated, there was questions about the water. So because we did realize that was gonna be an extended conversation, it was gonna lead to having to come to resolution, we proposed taking that off so that we could ultimately deal with that, through the proper channels of dealing with the water and sewer department. I mean, that was ultimately how that first meeting ended, that we said, let's take off those changes, deal with manufacturing, and then we can work with the town about how to handle the water issue. This gentleman just now said if it's 100 gallons of water a day, that's normal use. So I don't think it really is a discussion about water, because it's normal use for the facility. That's his words, not mine.
Okay, what's the board's pleasure? Mr. Scanlon's telling us we have approval from Graves, and we have a plan, and it's all been addressed since March, so it's 4 months. What's the board's pleasure? Mr. Clark, you were on the walk? You went on the walk?
Yeah, I went on the walk, and.
Were you satisfied?
I've heard a lot of conversation this evening with regards to things that might happen at some undefined point in time. I think we have to deal with what we have in front of us today, and I would go ahead with approving this.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion? Oh, wait a minute, sorry. We're still in the public hearing phase, yeah.
Did
Do we
you
have
want to
it-
hear from Mr. Shinaki and Mr. Durgan in terms of their thoughts, perhaps?
Is there any, yeah, you guys both went on the walk, what was your,
My thing was, if he wants to isolate that one building, and then do what you want, then the rest is down the road.
I personally don't care. I mean, they're not gonna be using more water than they did at Trafford's.
Yeah, pretty much. I was just
I
more
think
worried, like
the,
Dan said,
thing
you're
Dan
adding
had-
parking spots, and now you're talking about drainage and this and that, but that's on the other side.
It's on the letter that Bill just read, and Bill says
Yeah.
that town engineer's already looked at that and agreed that everything's okay.
Are you doing this parking lot right now, or are you waiting for cultivation for that?
The parking lot's going to ultimately just be below where the current employees are, just in that area. It's not gonna be paved, because that would
Gravel, fire
ultimately
lane.
lead to a violation with how the runoff would lead into the river. So, the parking, that would just be the increase in having our employees there for the manufacturing aspect. We do have the parking around the back, and as I believe the four of us had discussed, where the mill was knocked down the rear part, that area is gonna be cleaned up once the hydrant moves, because then we'll have access. So that right now is paved area with gravel on it. That would also be utilized for any additional parking back there, but we're not proposing any additional paving over anything right now. We do understand if we did that, that'd be a change in how the water runoff would be, and we'd have to get a full plan done for the board, as well as conservation.
Mr. Edmondson?
Mr. Emerson, yeah, that was gonna be the next question. Any more comments from yourself?
No, I disagree with what the board has said so far. I think with the parking and a number of other issues, I don't think this is as simple as it could be. I would love to see a plan with, simply the pads, loading dock shown, and let's get that squared away. But I think with the other things shown in the drawing, especially when the attorney, did not mention the parking and the striping, I can't support this.
Okay. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak on this matter? Close the public hearing? Okay, we're gonna close the public hearing at 9:02 PM. Somebody like to make a motion?
Oh, I guess it's on me. Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the modification as presented, and we get this thing off the docket and moving forward at some point. It's been here lingering for an eternity, it seems.
4 months. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have to go for a roll call vote.
Okay. Richard Clark, aye.
Mr. Chinaki?
Nay.
Okay. Mr. Edmondson?
Nay.
Mr. Durgan?
Aye.
Mr. Horn, I'm gonna say yes.
Thank you very much.
Me too.
Move it along.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. What's that gentleman's name?
Scott.
Thank you. He just has to speak. I appreciate it.
And you signed in, sir?
I did.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay,
Take something out of order, Jim Higgins has been waiting. in case you
Yeah.
have that, so
sure.
might have
Accuse
tonight's on the
myself.
agenda for the extension.
Okay.
Can I stay here, or do I need to move into
Yeah,
the
why don't you
audience?
go to the audience? but
Go to the audience.
If you wanna
Okay.
speak, you can speak.
All right.
Okay. So we're gonna jump to, under standard business, section 2, inspections and actions associated with site plans. This is Legacy Landing Country Club Acres, extension request to December 2023. This was the one that we did for 2 weeks last time, Bill?
Yes, correct.
All right, so Mr.
Bill was
Haynes.
somewhat, Bill wasn't able to attend the last meeting, so
Right.
he agreed to come tonight.
All right, so, Mr. Haynes, you believe that you're gonna have the project complete by December of this year?
I do.
Okay. While we were looking at your extension or your request for extension, there was some things that had come to the board's attention. At one point in time, there was an open manhole in the subdivision,
Yes,
and I believe that's been fixed now.
yes.
There was silt fences that were falling down.
And those have been fixed.
I think you have some more silt fences that are falling down.
Okay, well, we'll get to them.
Okay,
There's nothing leaving the site.
okay.
And right, as of right now, to give you an update, we have 13 homes closed at this time. We have 4 more going to close in the next 5 weeks. And then there'll be 5 remaining. That will be done by the end of the year. And we'll get the site buttoned up if we can pave it. Our second coat of pavement and our sidewalks on this fall, we will do it. I want to get it as complete as quickly as possible.
Okay. What about your, in your plan, there was a walking trail that goes all around the
Yep,
facility.
yeah, we're planning to put it in.
I don't know, that'll be completed this year also.
I believe so.
One of the things that I was gonna ask you about with that walking trail, that's gonna be, I believe one of the conditions on the approval for that, project was that that walking trail is gonna be open to the public. And I believe there's 2 or 3, proposed parking places for the public where they can go and park and then walk on the walking trail,
One of them was put in today.
okay? Have you given any thought to what you're gonna do to keep the people, the public, on the walking trail and not going off into the abutters properties or parking?
I've done many of these communities in the past. The public doesn't come in and use, although they can in several of the communities, but it's very rare, and they usually stay on property. You know, they feel as though it's not, I can't speak for them, but they feel as though it's not their property, and they really don't belong there. That's been my observation over the last 30 years of building over 55 communities. But there could be some signage put up that, you know, any guest must, you know, have to stay on the walking trail. You can put one at each entrance.
Okay.
Trash.
What's that?
We're not concerned about trash blowing around onto other properties. I think that was another thing.
Right.
If I may, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman, there have been instances where you have dumpsters on the property, and I've observed, I think it was last night, in fact, there's, in some cases, there's an indication on the dumpsters as to the point at which it's full, right? And in the past, can't speak to today, but very recently, especially when you were down the far end near the church lot, there was quite a bit of trash above, and the residents are actually using those dumpsters as well. And when
Not only residents, but outsiders too.
Right, well, I don't know about that, but somebody, in other words, they get filled, and they get overfilled. And when you get a good blast of wind, there's been occasions where a considerable amount of debris has found its way into the church property and the church parking lot. And I do know that there's a red dumpster now, at least as of last evening, that looked like it was over the line in terms of use level, you know, so that when we get another windstorm or some, I don't know.
Well, I mean, the standard practice with the dumpsters is just to take the big excavator and go push it down.
Okay,
Because
then
they won't
maybe-
pick it up
Well,
if the trash is showing above that
then
line.
maybe that needs to be done more frequently then,
Right.
because
Right.
as long as that's above the line and you get a good wind, whatever's in there is likely to find itself into someone else's property and be unwelcome, certainly.
Well, and I agree with that. And a lot of it does come from the public. They feel as though, and we've caught many people, absolutely. You know, I've questioned some of the people myself when I saw them throwing stuff in. And they say, oh, you know, it's a dumpster. I thought I could use it. One time I made a guy take a whole van full of rubbish out of an unused dumpster. Okay, and his excuse was, my wife told me I had to get this out of the house now.
I would ask her, at other locations, at this particular location
Well,
in Dudley, you've experienced this?
Yeah, we've opened up garbage bags and
Again,
black
in
tra-
Dudley?
in Dudley.
Something of
Dudley.
a surprise.
When people purchase the homes in your project, are they responsible for their own trash disposal, or
The HOA is responsible.
so the HOA is?
So we have a trash pickup with a carrier in town here.
Okay.
So, but some of them still use the dumpsters.
But is there a way for the local trash pickup to operate right now with the subdivision the way it is? I
Yes.
mean, like, can people? put
Yeah,
their-
they all have recyclables and trash cans. They have two.
And they can put them out by the road, and
It's Pratt Trucking.
they can put them out by the road, and the
Yes.
truck can come through and pick them
Yes.
up.
Yes,
And they're currently doing that.
yes. For several months now.
So there's not gonna be any, in that plan, there was no design for a dumpster pad with an enclosure or
No,
anything like that?
no,
So everybody's gonna be responsible for their own,
yes.
okay?
Mr. Chairman,
Dan just texted me, he's now off the phone. He had to leave, so.
Okay. All right, so, so you've heard the concerns about the
I have.
trash and the blowing off into the
And
neighbor's
I
yards.
will patrol it
Okay.
more.
One more time, I'm sorry, could you give us the statistics on the houses that are sold and lived in?
13 sold and lived in. 4 closing in the next 5 weeks. And then the last 5 are framed and roofed. And we were waiting for windows, which should have come today, and the siding is there. So those 5 are,
When do you plan to wrap up?
what's that?
When do you plan to wrap up all the site work and get out of there?
I wish it was a year ago, but it took me a year to get power from National Grid, as you know.
Yeah, I know.
Which was, it put a big, a major problem with that site.
So what do you have left to do, and do you think you can get it done by December 31st?
That's our goal.
So what else is left to do?
Well, really, is to finish the rest of the houses and then do finish the infrastructure. I mean,
Put a second final coat on
Yeah,
on the road?
no, we haven't yet.
So would you be able to do that before November? Because
Usually December 15th is the deadline to close the plants.
would you be able to meet that deadline?
I'm hoping to. If that doesn't happen, and that happened to me in Shrewsbury last year, and we just put the final coat on yesterday.
I'm just wondering whether.
So we wait till the good weather.
On December
Well,
31st.
yeah,
We'll wait till
Yeah,
the good
yeah, yeah.
weather. We'll turn the HOA over to the residents as soon as the last sale is completed. And
Refresh my memory, you're not gonna be putting sidewalks on the inside,
no,
Of that
we're gonna
roadway.
put the
the walking trail, and that's
yes.
it. And the walking trail, was that paved, or was it?
No, it was,
Like stone dust?
was it,
I don't know.
I think it was gravel or,
Yeah, I think it
I honestly don't remember, but
Okay. But it's not.
whatever the plan calls for.
It's not a pervious surface, so it's
No,
not gonna be concrete or asphalt? Okay.
Was the open space to go to the town or to remain with the association?
Well, I honestly don't recall. I'm sorry.
Call you.
Yeah. But, I mean, we're gonna diligently try to get this completed.
I thought the trail was the open space part.
Excuse me?
I thought the trail was the open space part, wasn't it?
It is.
Yes.
It's within the open space.
It's gonna be maintained by the homeowners association, but it does have,
There is a part of the site that's, you're not building on at all.
Yes, correct.
It's just being left vacant because of the water conditions are.
okay. So what's the board think? We should probably go more than to the end of the year, just in case, so that we don't
Yeah.
have to.
A year? If he doesn't need it, he doesn't need it, you know?
Yeah, that would be better. I wouldn't have to come back in.
Right, I mean, we're in July right now, so say
Be
till,
great.
say till the end of July of next year.
Okay.
Pretty aggressive to get it done within 5
I know
months.
it's really aggressive, but it's honestly, with interest rates the way they are right now, and waiting a year for power, it hasn't worked out favorably. So the thought is to, cover our bruises and go home, get it done as quickly as possible.
And then the only other question I had was the abutters that have, like, view of this. There was talk about some kind of fencing or landscaping going in. Is this gonna be complete this year, or do you think?
I'm not positive. I'll have to, I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. But whatever's on the plan is,
Yeah, I believe, Mr. Chairman, there was some landscaping that was going
I
to be.
think it was a berm with
Something, yeah.
plants.
There were a number of waivers, as I recall, actually, there were 21 waivers, and I believe one of them addressed that issue,
Yeah.
but the specifics of, I can't recall.
So then I guess my question would be that your intent is that you're gonna go through with all those
Yes.
conditions? Okay,
Yes.
all right. All right, so would somebody like to make a motion to extend the,
a motion to extend Legacy Landing Country Club Acres for 1 year.
Thank you.
I'm good.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
We're all set.
We need a roll call on that, Mr. Chairman?
He's not on the phone anymore.
Not on the phone. All right. One abstain.
Yep, one abstention. Oops, thank you, Mr. Haynes.
You're welcome.
Did
Thank you.
Did you sign in by any chance?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
Good enough.
Have a good night. All right. Cheese have, we gotta jump back down to standard business, number one, discussion status reports on finishing construction of an acceptance of uncompleted, unaccepted subdivision streets, including Pierpont Estates, Rocky Hill Estates, Country View Estates, Eisenhower Drive, Tobin Farm Estates, Lyon Estates. Do we have anything on those 5?
The only update would be on Tobin Farm. We do have the scope of work prepared by Graves Engineering under the betterment program. So that should be going out to bid in the next couple of weeks with the hope of getting the work done this construction season.
Really? That fast?
Oh.
We're gonna be in August in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, jumping back to 2 then, we just went over the Legacy Landing thing, that's taken care of. All the other ones under that section was SEP Solar, JD&D on Oxford Ave and Stevens Mill. Do we have any updates on those 3?
On the Oxford Ave solar project, I was in contact with the engineer. They're almost done. They wanted to hold off on having Graves do the final inspection until they complete the project, which I anticipate will be done this summer. So I think it's moving along pretty well.
Mr. Chairman, for the planner, Stevens Mill, I know there's been discussion or thoughts in terms of putting up a sign. I haven't seen one. I'm hoping I missed it.
What do you mean? There is a sign that says no trespassing.
Oh,
It's a big
okay.
sign, I
Well,
believe.
That's not quite the sign that I was hoping for or
Right.
looking for.
I saw a layout of the sign
Oh, good.
on paper, you know.
All right. Well,
I
that's further along than we had before.
I haven't seen it installed, and,
Right.
so
So
I don't know
still-
what the hang-up is.
Still to come.
Now, when does that come up, back up for
That's a good
renewal?
question.
It's-
Oh, yeah.
Special permit, let me check that.
Very good
The
question.
other thing I wanted to,
been a long
I
time
just
now.
wanted to say is I drove down Oxford Ave
Yeah,
today and
'cause
I
I've
did
been here
notice that
almost 3 years.
JD&D, it looks like they did some, I wouldn't call it asphalt, it looks like asphalt millings in the parking lot. It's all been,
Okay.
put down and rolled, and it looked, everything was nice and clean and neat, and it
It's
looked
for rent.
pretty good.
I don't know what he has left there.
Is that what it was, rent? I thought we were selling it.
Thought he was trying to rent it.
I thought it was for him. I thought that's why he built it for.
Yeah,
is, like, trucks.
there was a sign out there that said JD&D Construction, but
Good point.
that's it.
So to answer Tom's question, we approved the project on June 8th, 2022, and it was for 3 years, so it expires June 8th, 2025.
Oh, okay.
So they got
Yeah, a long
less than a
time.
year to go to start. So,
Almost 2 years.
Plenty of time.
2023.
20
Plenty of time for
22,
the sign.
22,
anyway.
okay, yeah. Yeah, I was thinking 21. Okay, and do we have anything else? We didn't have anything from JD&D asking for like a final inspection or anything?
No,
Okay, 'cause like I said, it looks like there's been a lot of work done there.
Yeah.
It's all
you
cleaned
want
up.
me to have Graves do an inspection, or?
Or you,
Or maybe
maybe,
call 'em and ask
maybe
'em.
just ask JD&D if they're complete and they need a final inspection, or,
Cross that one off.
yeah.
Be good.
Because it looks to me like it's, that may be all they're gonna do. Maybe they're not gonna hot top it. But, I mean, what's there looks pretty nice, and it's,
Well, if they're looking to sell the property, maybe they figure they'd sell it as is, you know.
okay, so that takes care of those. Number 3, the decision on the Nichols College townhome project and possible vote to approve. We already approved it, but,
Still no closing on
Okay.
99 Center Road.
all right.
Mr. Chairman, these things seem to, I mean, we could almost print this up months ago, and it hasn't changed a whole lot. I mean,
I know.
what is the timetable here? I mean, how long do we keep these things, just hanging on as agenda items? I
Well,
mean, the Nichols thing has been months now.
We voted it. I mean, we could just sign it and let it go, but I mean,
Well,
No, I think it was pending approval
Yeah,
behind that law.
It
Maybe they
seems that
backed out, who knows?
There's no impetus for the applicants or the folks involved to move forward on these things. They just let them, linger forever, if you
Maybe
will.
we'll put a timeline on it.
Some of us may be off the board by the time this thing finally resolves itself. It seems that there should be.
Nothing we can do about it,
Yeah,
you know?
I don't know.
I mean,
There's nothing we can do about it, is
No,
what
I
you're
mean,
saying?
we're basically not signing it because we want to see the closure on the property
Right.
for what we approved, and if that closure doesn't go through, then they really can't do what we approved, if they don't own the property,
Right,
correct?
you can't do the site plan, you can't build it without.
Without owning the property,
Unless they come back to the board for a modification.
right. So, I mean,
So what we gave approval for, is that dated? Is there a time limit on our approval?
Yes, I believe so.
All right, so if they haven't resolved this issue by the time that expires, then that's off the table and they have to start again.
Correct.
Okay. And that's where it becomes a matter of
Is that a-
dates, in
is that a
terms of
12
someone having to track these dates and keep,
Right.
be sure.
would that be a 12-month window, Bill, or a 24?
Usually 2 years for site plan, but let me check.
That must go way back, I guess.
I'm gonna say we approved that like in January or
Approved in
February.
November of 2022.
November 2020, for 2 years?
I think it would default to 2 years based on the zoning bylaw. I don't see it actually in the decision.
Okay, so we're gonna see this as an agenda item for some months to come then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 4, planner's plate. You have anything, Bill?
I do not.
Number 5, comments from the planning board. So I'm gonna start on that one with, I attended a Board of Selectmen meeting a few weeks back and notified the Board of Selectmen that we were going to basically like self-fund the planner. And I've talked to Bill about this, and I mean, I don't think there's any reason we can't do this, from a legal standpoint, and nobody on the Board of Selectmen said, no, don't do it. So, I mean, I think it was more of a courtesy that we're just letting them know that this is our plan for keeping the planner funded so that we can keep the projects moving forward. But one of the things I also took a look at, and I just made phone calls to all the surrounding towns to see if I could get a copy of their fee schedule for the fees that they charge for the planning board. I was able to get, Webster's was online, Charlton's was online, Southbridge didn't have one. Oxford has one, but I haven't received it yet, I'm waiting for that one. And I looked at ours, and our fee schedule the last time it was updated or changed was 2005, so almost 20 years. So I think it's probably a good time that we look at updating the fee schedules of what everybody pays for that. Because that money, that money goes into the general fund, obviously, but I mean, if the planning board can be a profit center rather than a loss, I don't think the Board of Selectmen would have a problem with us.
How far off were our fees from other towns?
One of the big things that I noticed was like, Charlton seems to have a lot more fees than we do. They've come up with ways of charging for things that we normally charge, like what we just did, the extension of that covenant, they charge for that.
Oh, yeah?
They have a $200 fee for that. We don't, we just do it courteously.
Mr. Chairman, if it goes into the general fund, how do we get that to the planner?
Well, what I was just trying to say is that my goal with doing this and raising the fees would be to have the planning board be more of
Enterprise?
no, as an enterprise, but have the planning board be more of a moneymaker for the town, so that when they look at cutting things, they're gonna be like, oh, we can't cut the planner because the planning board pretty much makes enough money to self-fund the planner.
I'm a little leery of the idea, I'm a little leery of it going into the general fund, because then.
Yeah, that's the
then,
fire department, how they're.
Well, I think there are a lot of hands that
The
will be
fees,
tipping in.
that's where the fees go. We can't change that.
Oh.
But what I'm saying is, the other thing, I'm probably confusing the two items here. So the things that I think we need to do, there's two things we need to do. One, we need to try to self-fund the planner.
Okay.
And the second thing we do is to need to look at the fees, because if if we haven't done this in almost 20 years, there's a good chance that we're not up to speed where we should be.
Okay.
One of the things I noticed with Webster and Charlton also was like tonight A&R plans. We only charge $100 per lot. They do the same, but they also charge a $50 or $75 fee for just filling out the paperwork. So that's, that's really, we're leaving some money on the table here that I think we need to just.
Charge them per lot.
Or they-
$100,
four
$100,
lots.
They
four
ch-
lots, $400.
Yeah, they charge per lots too, but the money that you charge for the lots are supposed to go into the general fund to help pay for the remapping, because if you're changing lot lines, you have to get the, what do they call it, the tax maps or the GIS maps updated. So that was money that was supposed to be set aside to take care of that. Although right now I found out the GIS maps and vision appraisal,
Unfunded right now.
it's not even online anymore, and I think that.
They're taking it offline because of the cost.
Right, but doesn't the state of Massachusetts require that to be online?
Don't believe so. David, you want to address that? David's on the.
We didn't
phone.
have it before. I mean, that's kind of new. Remember, he brought it up. He brought it when we first got
I
it.
thought that's how all
He
these.
had like a planning board meeting to explain everything.
Oh, well, Guy Horn, I thought
I
everyone.
thought that's how all these companies came into existence, was that the state of Massachusetts made that a law that you had to
It needs
be.
available online, though.
So
Had-
the town has a contract with CAI to make all the changes, lot changes that are approved over time. And they maintain the GIS system for the town, and they prepare the tax maps, of course. They've been taken off the internet because of the cost of maintaining them on the internet, but the work will still be done to keep the maps current.
But like the assessor's website, like with vision appraisal, I thought that had to be accessible to the public also.
I don't think so, because there are towns that don't have that in Massachusetts that don't have.
Well,
It has to be
there's
on the internet.
there's towns in Massachusetts that don't have vision appraisal, but they'll have some other company do it
Right.
You could still go down to the assessor's office and get a printed copy of it.
one day a week. Okay.
Or you can
For an
email
hour.
her. Just open it to the
You know,
public one day a
it's
week.
unfortunate, that the assessors department lost the clerk, so there's just one person in that office now who is tremendously overworked.
So the other issue was to self-fund basically to self-fund the planner the same way we self-fund the engineer. So the applicants come in with something, and if the planner has to write a letter, or if the planner has to coordinate a meeting, or if he has to review something and give us his opinion, or look up something for us so that we can have the meetings running in the proper way, that we're gonna ask the applicants to pay for this at an hourly rate. And then it will be up to Bill to keep track of this, and then that money will have to go into their, what's the funds that we currently put the escrow accounts?
Yes.
So the money would go into the escrow accounts, and then you would give us, on a every meeting basis, you would give us a spreadsheet of some sort that tells us which accounts need to have money taken out of. We would vote it just like we do voting for the vouchers and the payments. The only difference is because this is gonna go to Bill, it doesn't make, we can't give him the permission to sign off on it, so we're gonna have to vote it and sign off on it ourselves as being the elected board, because the money's going to him.
So the first part of this would be to establish a fee structure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we would have to obviously vote that into existence, and what have we got to do? Well, we have to get there first.
Would
And
that,
then
would
someday
that have to go to
it
legalized
become effective.
counsel to be okay?
And anything that's pending currently, I assume we
Grandfathered in.
grandfathered in.
So fees are considered a regulation, so you can adopt a regulation anytime you want to by advertising,
Right,
holding a public
holding
hearing.
the public hearing,
So it doesn't need town meeting or selectment approval,
Right.
yep.
legal approval,
Yeah.
it's just up to the board.
Right. And my thought was, I think we should we have to advertise it for 2 weeks, correct?
Yes.
So I think we should do our due diligence, have our 2 weeks of advertisement. But when we have that meeting where we advertise that we're gonna set up this proposed system for the town planner, that we also review all the fees in our fee schedule, and maybe we add some fees, or we tweak some fees.
See what they look like, yeah.
Yeah, because they're
We
not.
can get them a company car.
And to Mr. Shinaki's point, those things that are currently pending, we would, the fees would not apply, or?
I think,
Applicable?
no, I think what we basically gotta do is we gotta notify all the people that have ongoing projects, that because of this, I mean, this funding is basically done on a fiscal year. And we're not gonna have funding after such and such point of time.
Well, a lot of these things are already pretty much wrapping up.
Hopefully.
Right, but I mean, it's not gonna be a lot. I mean, I can't imagine
Okay.
a project's gonna have a $10,000 bill from Mr. Scanlon because he had to review something at the end of a project.
Only wants 10 grand. and-
But the thing that we do need to consider is like, how are we gonna, how is this gonna be paid? Like, like, I think it can be done like on an hourly basis, but I think we're gonna break it down to like maybe 15 or 20-minute intervals.
You have to give them like an estimated, rough idea of how much time it's gonna take, Bill. You know what
We
I
don't have a
mean?
rough idea how long it's gonna take the engineer to do something, we
Yeah.
just put money in the account, and then when it's used, it's
Yeah.
taken out, and what's not used gets given back to the applicant at the end of the project.
We take on faith his time and his money, his piece of, what he
Right.
charges.
Right.
Okay.
So the.
Oh, I was speaking out of turn, I
That's
think,
a
but
great idea.
I commend the chairman for having given this thought and hoping to move this forward. And as he, said, given the situation that the town is in, the more we can do to provide, services and somehow arrange to pay for those services, again.
I mean, if we end up,
Approval.
if we lose Bill he's only here 15 hours per week. If we lose Bill half of that time, I don't see how we're gonna get things done that we need to do on a regular basis. So we need to be able to
Right.
not have that happen.
We need something.
Right. And my thought was like, one of the things that we need to come up with is what are we gonna charge for an hourly rate for Bill? I mean, I don't think it can be the same hourly rate that he's currently being paid for by the town, because until we see how this works, we have to have some, I don't wanna say a buffer, but we have to have like, if we put it in at the same price that he currently gets paid by the town, and we find out 2 months down the road that that's not enough money, and we've lost him for some number of hours, and we can't get things done, then we gotta go back and revote it. So my thought is, let's go in at a higher rate right now, and if we find out that it's not necessary, we can always scale it back. I mean, right now, they're charging $159 an hour for Graves engineering work. And right now, the town pays Bill $60 per hour. My suggestion is we started off at $90 an hour. So that way there, like I said, if there's a problem down the road, we don't have to go back in and raise it, because I think if we go to the applicants and say, we were charging you 60 for Bill, but now we're gonna charge you 90, they're gonna
Here's
be
your new
upset.
car.
I think we start off at 90, see how it works, and if there's a,
We'll have to figure out the math. We'll have to look at this pretty
We'll
good.
have to massage this as we go along, I think, but you have to start it first.
right, and that's why I'm saying that we should start it at 90. I don't think $90 is outrageous for Bill's time, and I think he can, if we don't have him, I just think we're gonna come to a screeching halt very quickly.
The alternative would be to probably try to make greater use of town council, and we know that number is crazy.
It's a lot more than $90 an
I know,
hour.
yeah.
We'll just send everything to town council. Get rid of Bill. What do you want us to do?
So
Alright.
that's what I wanted to bring up to this meeting. So like I said, for the next meeting, I will have, I'm making a spreadsheet with all the other towns, what their fees are, what our
Yeah.
fees are, and then the missing fees that we don't have, that maybe we should consider for the future.
That would be interesting. to see.
So I'll have that all put together, I'll give it to, I'll hand it out to everybody, we can take a look at it. I mean, we just, like Bill said, we just basically vote this in at a public hearing, correct? So, and then we can say that everything's been updated. I mean, because, when people take a look at this and say it hasn't been touched since 2005, they're gonna be like, what the heck, because I don't know of anything that's still the price of 2005. So,
Not much.
yeah, and I mean, I don't think we have to be the highest town in the neighborhood, but I mean, we shouldn't be the lowest if we are, you know, we should take a look at what we are compared to the other towns, and if we are the lowest, obviously, we gotta put ourselves in line, but again, we don't have to be the highest. I mean, some things we are high on, I mean, and I don't know why, but maybe we have to take a look at it and see, maybe there are some things that we're high on, but I mean, nobody's complained.
Right, but again, to the point you mentioned, in 2005, nobody's really looked at it in 18 years probably, so
No.
who knows what's there.
And I mean, one of the things that I didn't really understand is, like, we have lots of things, our application fees, there's two ways you can do it. Like, if you submit a preliminary plan, there's two different fees you can pay if you submit a preliminary plan. If you don't submit a preliminary plan, you pay a higher fee. And I kinda get that, you know, if you don't do the work up front in a preliminary plan, that you're gonna pay a higher fee because, you know, you're kinda throwing us stuff that we're not ready to see or not, maybe not expecting. But, even some of those things have two ways that they can be broken down to pay for, and I don't know when that previous fee schedule was made up, I don't know what the thinking was behind that. I just.
We'll never know.
Well, for the Sophie's Way plan, the preliminary plan resulted in a very thorough understanding of what was being proposed, and that led directly to the definitive plan. So I think it made the peer review less costly, because there was an understanding of what would be permitted.
Right, but that benefits the applicant.
Yeah, it doesn't benefit the town.
Doesn't benefit the town, yeah. So my thought was, maybe we need to just go to a one fee. You know, if you got a preliminary plan, it's this much. If you got a definitive plan, it's this much. And then if you submit a preliminary plan, I can see the point of making it advantageous for the person to submit the preliminary plan. But I mean, I think in our case, we may be going over the top. So we need to take a look at that. That's just what I had noticed when I was looking at, because I haven't even looked at that fee schedule. I don't remember the last time I looked at the fee schedule, but I found it online and I printed it out and I started going through it with all the other town stuff. And like I said, I did see some things like, you know, like for instance tonight, just extending that covenant. If that happened in Charlton, they would pay I think it was a $200 fee for that. And we don't even have it as
Yeah,
a fee.
so every time they extend it, let them pay.
Yeah,
Keep
so
dragging it
we could-
on or
we could
take
give
it
it, we
off.
could give it to them in 6 months intervals, yeah. Instead of 1 year.
Every 30 days.
Come back in. So, but anyways, that was my thought, so. Bill, can we get a schedule for the public hearing? Would it be just 2 weeks from tonight, or do we need to go?
Well, you need to have the proposed schedule
Oh,
available for public comment
okay, so,
when you advertise.
all right, so then I could get that ready for the next meeting, which is in August.
Right.
Then we could review it as a board, and then if we're in agreement, or we can come to an agreement in that meeting, then we could put it out to,
The first meeting in September.
okay, okay. And just refreshing my memory, we have you currently funded through the end of October?
Something like that. I've looked
Okay.
at it.
Okay,
This town, who knows?
could change. Okay. Any other comments from the planning board?
Don't know how this fits, Mr. Chairman, but we have Caitlin here, obviously, and she's part of the planning department, so to speak. And we should keep that in mind in terms of when we're putting these together. I know they tagged the number $90 an hour, and I suspect that she's probably looking for 150 or so, or something like that. But I don't know how that breaks into this. I know that she wears a number of hats, so it's a little more nebulous. But on the other hand, that is part of what puts us into motion, if you will.
So,
What's that?
Throw her in payroll too.
Well, I mean,
Well, you're not paying.
no, she's making these copies and she's chasing our name tags down and all that other good stuff, so, I mean.
it's a good point. I
We
mean,
just have to.
Have they told you, like, are they cutting your hours or anything, Caitlin? So you gotta do more with less,
She's
basically.
gotta pick up your pen.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Tomorrow,
what-
I'm taking a course to become a stormwater inspector. And then
Oh.
in the office.
Okay. Increased value on her part.
For further consideration.
Okay, yeah.
And again, I want to thank you for taking the initiative
My-
and
my only-
getting us into this possibility.
Don't take this the wrong way, Caitlin, but my only issue with Bill only works for the planning board, more or less. So it's, for me, that's cut and dry.
Yeah.
Where she's working for multiple departments, I don't know how
It's
we
a
would
little-
set this up,
yeah,
yeah.
little bit, yeah.
So I think we would have to talk to town administrator and things like that, because I don't know how to make that
Well,
cut and dry.
I guess I see it perhaps as a way in which we can keep Caitlin involved, even if it is only as a part-time person, where if we can't justify or come up with some monies in order to fund her position, someone might get the idea that we can.
I mean, we can't
Move
be funding her work for conservation.
Right, no, we don't want to be doing that, but we certainly want her availability too.
Right. So, okay. Anything else?
Fish Road, is that thing gonna be popping up anytime soon?
What's that now?
The grow facility on Fish Road?
I don't have,
Nothing, how about the other one, the Hall Road?
All right,
They haven't come
or Hall
before us.
Road, I don't have any new information on. Fish Road, as you know, we approved
yeah.
the definitive subdivision plus the cultivation facility. And nothing has happened for either of those yet. And I was expecting the Hall Road retail marijuana store to come in, but it hasn't yet.
Now, can the town get that as contracts with somebody else? If they wanna open up a grocery store? Or
Well, the town
they locked
has a
in that?
host community agreement with that for Hall Road. And that's remaining in place until it's withdrawn, so.
Again, I think the gentleman spoke to the conditions in terms of the market at the present time, such that it doesn't look like anybody who's looking to enter the market would want to do that, given the economics involved. So those things probably won't happen until, as he suggested, the market kind of stabilizes or shakes out.
Balances.
The other project which will be coming in soon is the cell tower off of Carroll Drive. It's town land, town put out an RFP for a cell tower, has selected a cell tower company. We're still negotiating the lease for that. Once that lease is signed, they would then move forward with submitting their plan to the planning board for approval.
What about
I
this?
don't have a time frame, but it would probably be in early fall.
Okay. What about the solar field on the dump? Is that moving forward?
That's under construction.
It's already moving forward.
Yeah, they
Okay.
put hay barrels up.
All right. Anything else?
Mr. Petrova's been waiting patiently.
Oh, we got, the next one is comments from our audience.
I was wondering if the board doesn't mind, I wanted to share a little bit of information on frontage definition, because earlier tonight, I was listening to that discussion, and I was fascinated by the idea of a river kind of blocking access. So I checked real quick, and the subdivision regs are kind of vague. They just go on to say proper frontage on a way, no plan shall be endorsed as a lot not requiring approval under subdivision control, yada, yada, yada. And it says that unless each building lot to be created by such plan has the proper frontage on a way. So proper frontage can be really open to interpretation. However, the zoning regs for Dudley actually do have a much better definition or a clearer definition of frontage, and that is, give me 1 second here, I gotta turn this so I can read it. Frontage, the distance measured along the front street lot line between the points of intersection of the side lot lines with the front lot line, which provides safe, convenient, and meaningful vehicular access to the building portion of the lot. Frontage for the purpose of this bylaw shall be continuous frontage, and in the case of corner lots shall be measured, and it goes on, but the key thing there is provide safe, convenient, and meaningful vehicular access to the building portion of the lot. So, by that definition, I don't see how you can be having your frontage on the other side of the river if your building is gonna be on this side of the river. The other problem you have is if you're gonna call that frontage across the river as your legal frontage for the lot, I believe the address for that property or that house would have to be that other street across the way, which minor problem might be getting Amazon deliveries or something like that. The guy's gonna show up on the wrong street and throw his box across the river. But a bigger problem would be EMS, fire department, police, anything like that. Your street address is across the river, and they could literally, I mean, I don't know that area well enough to know how hard it would be for them to go around and get to the other location. But it's just a thought, but the meaningful vehicular access to the building portion of the lot kind of really clears it up for me.
I just don't think.
Mr. Wetruba, your A&R plan is for your frontage on a different road as well.
Right, but I have meaningful access either way. There's nothing, there is no,
Frontage,
there's
like you
no.
just said, for EMS and
there's
everything.
nothing to stop
It
it.
should be frontage on the road that you're proposing the frontage on.
Right, so all those houses on that cul-de-sac are gonna have the address of Sophie's Way.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not
Then
gonna
why
have,
wasn't the frontage on Sophie Way? Right?
it's a corner lot. Or it will be.
Originally, the A&R plan you presented didn't have Sophie's Way, didn't exist. Now, today, it does exist.
Yeah.
Like
And I
what
could
he's
make the
saying
argument
is-
that the other difference, the other distinction here is
My
I have
thing
the
is in
required
every-
amount of frontage on either one.
I
It's
know,
100 feet
side-
on one and 150
side-
on the other.
Side frontage and front frontage are different setbacks. That's why you can use frontage on this road, that's where your driveway and everything connects to.
The example that was
EMS
brought
and
up was,
everything else was
they talked about Mason
frontage,
Road.
so-
Well, Mason Road was a different situation because although the wetlands in the front of that lot precluded them from being able to put the driveway in on that frontage, the common driveway that serves the two lots does go out to Mason Road. It doesn't go out to someplace in the back, like some other road completely. They're not trying to say, oh, the frontage is on Mason, but our driveway is going out on, some other place.
I just don't think on an interior lot where you have 5 acres or more of land and you have a 50-foot strip of land that comes out to some road and connects to that. I think I think the intention of that was if you were gonna use that 5 acres in the back, that's backland, you're gonna have your access through that 50-foot strip. And if your 50-foot strip comes out and touches a river, and then on the other side of the river is your frontage,
On a common driveway.
right. But I think if he had, like I said, I think if he had 50 feet around the corner where there was no riverfront, I could see that would be more, in my opinion, that would be more legal. But I'm not an attorney, so I'm gonna refrain from making legal opinions, but, all right.
That was it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
So our next meeting is gonna be August 9th, same place, same time. Do we have any, I think we do have some consultant vouchers and payments of bills.
We have two Graves Engineering for the review of Sawmill Road subdivision.
Okay, so,
$1,717.75.
yep,
And one from Stonebridge Press for the Sophie's Way legal ad in the amount of $176.40.
okay, would somebody like to make a motion to approve these vouchers?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the two vouchers mentioned, one for Graves Engineering for $1,717.75. The other to Stonebridge Press for $176.40.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second? We have a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous?
Just so you know, the Graves invoice was through June. And they've done additional work on the definitive plan of Sophie's Way, so we'll get another invoice for July 1.
It's okay, Mr. Waitrobe has got deep pockets, we're good.
Gonna get him in before the fee schedule goes up.
That's
too.
right, and that's, yeah, look at how lucky he is. Because I can see the definitive plan for a private way being at least $10,000. Okay, anything else?
And the town notices?
Somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. Thank you, everybody.